Marcel Hug has been so dominant. He's won this event many, many times, and he is very much the man to beat today. Can the others go with him? We expect a fast, aggressive start from Hug. And Romanchuk and Weir, they've almost got nothing to lose. They should try and go with the Swiss man. The silver bullet there with his trademark silver helmet. The wheelchair field poised, ready. They are going to be set off by Rosie Edwards. She is taking part in the mixed assisted para race with her partner there, Ivo Garnham. They're going to be trying to go for 3 hours to 3 hours 10 or so. They'll be getting underway in a few moments' time, but they have set off the elite wheelchair race. Men and women split on either side of the road, and they will push hard through this first 5 kilometres. Decent conditions for all of the athletes here today. A little bit colder perhaps for the wheelchair athletes now, but it will warm up as they move through the next hour and a half or so of their race.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly as well, speaking to a few of the wheelchair athletes across this week, talking about how important the start is, how important the warm-up is, and you can see they all pushed very hard off the line because they don't want to miss breaks. Drafting is very key in this sport, and they don't want to get left behind. And as we know, there's with Marcel Hug, he's a very aggressive pusher, and they will not want to let him get away too early. And as you mentioned, Hannah, Weir has got a new lease of life with his new wheelchair, and he's talked a lot to me this week about how that has got him inspired to get on the rollers in his garage. He feels younger, he feels inspired to get training, and it's really helping him find some new speeds, and it'll be interesting to see what happens in this wheelchair race today.
Tomoki Suzuki of Japan at the front here, just trying to push the pace. We were expecting Marcel Hug, I'm sure, any moment now, who will get himself to the fore. I can't quite pick out the silver helmet of Hug. There it is, round about in 4th or 5th place. But Suzuki in the lead at the moment, Romanchuk in 2nd. But we talk a lot about technology with the runners and the shoes, but these wheelchairs these athletes are having developed really are something different in the last kind of 12, 18 months or so. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it was fascinating for me to learn a lot about what's going on in their sport, and Eden interestingly, Eden Rainbow Cooper was talking a lot about how it's the technology is advanced, but also you've got to learn how to use it. It's not just as simple as getting into these new racing wheelchairs and expecting yourself to be able to handle it. They are lighter, they're faster, they're a lot more rigid, and they hold you in a very stiff position. And Eden is actually, she said to me today, she's racing in a hybrid bike, so she's not full carbon compared to some of her other competitors. A slightly less advanced model, which she knows in the future she wants to go into the more aggressive technology. But it's fantastic for me to learn just how the sport is progressing and how these guys are really trying to push boundaries physically and in a technology sense.
And on a course like London here, we know it's twisty and turny, it's very technical. I think that's potentially a smart choice from Eden Rainbow Cooper. If she's not totally confident in the sort of delicate handling of that carbon wheelchair, it makes sense to stick with something she's used to and she's confident in on a course like this. And she's very much still learning the marathon event. She was a great track star, Eden Rainbow Cooper, and she was mentored a lot by David Weir as she was a developing athlete. And Weir has moved himself up into 2nd place here. We've got Romanchuk on the other side of the road from Suzuki, and these athletes are probably looking around saying, where is Marcel Hug? What is he playing at? This is not the normal tactics from Hug. Normally he shoots off the front and tries to push just as hard as he can in the early stages, but at the moment Hug with the silver helmet, it's tucking in to 5th or 6th place. Perhaps he's feeling his shoulder. He fell very, very hard in Boston, and the reports are he's got bruising the whole way down his arm. So perhaps, Hug does say he's all right and he's fully fit and ready to compete today, but perhaps he's not going to attack such an aggressive pace as we would be used to.
Yeah, I think he seemed very kind of blasé about it in the hotel of it's fine, it's fine. I think most elite athletes, if you are as good as someone like him, you want to brush off these things as not being a big deal. You don't want your competitors to think they have a one-up on you. And the going over these speed bumps in the first 5k is a nuisance, certainly at the speeds these guys were going as they just went over one of them. But yeah, Hug was very kind of candid about it, spoke it's healed, it's fine. But interestingly, he is very aware that David Weir in particular is in a very specialised new racing chair which has been designed for him, and it's in the same place that he had his done. And David said to me that when he was having his wheelchair tested, Marcel did come in, have a look, see what was going on, had a little nose, and one of the mechanics there said, "Are you worried?" And he openly said, "Yeah, I'm very aware that David has a new setup, and so maybe there's a little bit of that in this. Maybe there is a little bit of him kind of assessing the lay of the land. He's got his arm to think about. He's got people in, bringing maybe a different level of power to the game. So it's interesting, and certainly the first 5k is quick, and there will be coming up shortly the downhill section towards the roundabout, which a lot of them said to me there's generally a mat there for tracking purposes, split purposes, sorry, and it is quite a tricky point, so they do have to be careful about how hard they go down that. So maybe he's waiting to get to the safer bit of the land, the flatter bit where he can be a bit more aggressive. I don't know, a lot trying to read athletes as they're going is interesting, but it's good to see that there's a big group of them, and it keeps it interesting for us for the short term anyway.
It certainly does. I love that insight from Marcel Hug. If you've had such an advantage, you potentially lose it if everyone else catches up with your chair. But here is a look at today's course. The wheelchair athletes have already left Blackheath and Greenwich Park, and they'll head out and loop back round in a hairpin, and they will around 6 miles. They will hit Cutty Sark, that's at the furthest east part of the course. Here they are making their way back towards the iconic British tea clipper ship of the late 1800s. They then follow the south bank of the River Thames before hitting Tower Bridge around about halfway. And for the wheelchair athletes, just the other side of Tower Bridge here on the map is where they will hit their flying 400, and they can collect extra prize money and extra World Marathon major points. The runners and riders will then head towards Canary Wharf and the financial district. This section is probably the twistiest of the whole London Marathon course, and the athletes will double back on themselves. It's often quiet as well, not so many spectators through the financial district on a Sunday. Very busy other points in the week. Miles 14 and 21 will pass through the Rainbow Row again this year, which celebrates the LGBTQIA+ community. And finally, after passing in front of the Houses of Parliament and Big Ben, the athletes will finish their marathon in the Mall in the shadow of Buckingham Palace, around the outside of St James's Park. And that will be the end of their 26.2 miles. Hopefully, smiles and waves at that stage for the winners, certainly in the elite races, and all the masses that follow on behind. A record-sized field here for London Marathon, over 50,000 taking part in the mass participation race. But for the next few hours, it is all about the elite athletes, and on the wheelchair side, as expected, for the first time, the Swiss athlete Marcel Hug pushes to the front. I think we can see David Weir with the white shoulders behind. He's pushing hard, trying to make the break.
Yeah, this is interesting now. I'm sure David in his head is deciding, what do I do here? And I'm sure Marcel's doing the same thing. Do I keep committing to this? I've got a bit of a gap. Do I keep pushing it? And David, I mean, I'm trying to read this, but he looks like he's trying to get into his draft here, and he doesn't want to let him get away. And this is interesting, and I'm sure Hug right now is trying to figure out. He's looking at him to get behind. Oh, he's actually pointed, get in behind. So maybe there's going to be a little bit of working together here happening. It's definitely the two specialised wheelchairs are looking to maybe work together. And Hug's looking for Weir, and Weir's sitting in behind quite nicely. And I'm trying to see who that is behind. Can you see who behind?
We've got Romanchuk tucking into third place, and Suzuki, the Japanese athlete, had an early lead. I think that's still him holding on to fourth place. But the point I was going to make as we went to the course map was, Hug, if he's used to pushing at the front and trying to push away from the other athletes and give himself an advantage. And if he's done that on a superior chair until now, he probably isn't that worried about the athletes coming back to him. But suddenly now, if they've got a lighter chair as well, they've got the ability to match him and perhaps have a bit more energy left at the end. That's going to be a different dynamic for Hug. He managed fine in Boston last week. He did manage to get away from the rest of the athletes, but Romanchuk is in, just working his way back into the lead. He's perhaps slightly missed that break, but he has decided to push as he's caught the group. That's a decision you make when you catch runners. Do you tuck in behind or do you just go straight past? Exactly,
and I think obviously with the downhill sections, it's a very different feel to the sport. To run, and as they go over some of the timing mats, they're going to be a bit mindful as they're cruising down and coming round to, this is the tricky roundabout. So this is the section that they mentioned to me that they are, as you can see, the hay bales in the background, just to make certain that who doesn't go off course and hurt his other arm. So yeah, they've come out of that safely, which is good to see. And now from this point on, there are a few tricky corners, especially through the Isle of Dogs. But from this point, they can not be too worried about anything that's coming up. And Daniels looks, again, he's just opening up his arms and freeing himself up. This is a nice section to come off that bit, and it's a nice straight shot all the way to, we've got the Cutty Sark, obviously. Let's not forget that. They've got to go around that before they have a straight shot to London Bridge. But the three main wheelchair races seem to be clear, and we'll have to see if Suzuki can get on the back of it. But at the moment, the three of them look to be in a position to try and work together and open up a bit of a gap, and Wheel could be looking at another podium finish. So you can see the athletes here just pushing past a drink station. Because of the race duration for the wheelchair athletes, been closer to an hour and a half, maybe 100 minutes for the women. They're not going to take on drinks in the same way that we will see the elite runners taking on. Of course, the masses are going to be having loads of water as they make their way past the streets. But you can see the athletes there just ignoring the drink station. They quite often have a water pack with them, almost like a Camelback. I'm sure there's other brands out there, but you know, those little rucksacks that you can carry on your back if you were running, and these athletes will have a similar pouch in their chair if they feel like they need hydration during a race. It's pretty cool conditions here in London. I think we could see these wheelchair athletes go the whole distance without any fueling or hydration. Yeah, I think so. I mean, generally speaking, it's the amount of time you're doing exercise, which, you know, which is, I've always felt that sometimes when someone's running a 6-hour marathon, in a lot of ways that's a lot tougher fueling wise and hydrating wise than for doing a marathon in 2 hours or 2 hours 10 or an hour and a half. So it's a lot to do with the length of time you're exercising, and these three will, you know, be somewhere, I assume, under the hour and a half mark, which is getting close to the length of time. Some a half marathon, some runners would run a half marathon, and I certainly wouldn't fuel. And they're just going past them, trying to see the 4-mile marker, and the three of them now are looking comfortable with each other, and they looking like they're as Hugh goes to the front, he's pushing the pace a little bit, and I'm assuming now there'll be a bit of sharing of the load, a bit of rest. Certainly the guys behind who will try and rest their arms and get a bit of a respite, because they mentioned to me, speaking to them, there is a 30% assistance in reducing of effort in the slipstream. I believe they said that was a scientific study done on that, which is a lot. 30% is a heck of a lot, and as we see Dave just lean back just to give his arms a little bit of a rest and a little bit of a shake out as they keep going. So Hug at the front now. They were through 5 kilometres in around 10 minutes 7 seconds. Quite a lot slower, around about 40 seconds slower than Marcel Hug's 9:28 split last year when he pushed to a championship record. So we are seeing a very different style of racing from Hug today, and different than we did on Monday in Boston. And these athletes, they can do races back to back. They can do all of the Abbott World Marathon majors and collect loads and loads of points, unlike the runners who perhaps the impact on their legs, they can do more than they ever could before with the new shoe technology. But the wheelchair
wheelchair athletes, they will be familiar with each other and they'll race week in, week out. And I wouldn't blame Marcel Hug. You can see him just adjusting himself in his chair here. He's fine. Just making sure there wasn't. Yeah, I mean, of course, you're going to play down a fall, and Hug's not going to, make himself look vulnerable to his competitors. But this has surely got to be an indication these are a little bit sore physically from that fall, and perhaps tired as well, because it was a big old push in Boston. It was a 90-second championship record, which is a course record, which is massive. So Hug, perhaps knowing the time he pushed last year, 1:23.44. If he thinks he can't match that this year, he might as well just have a good old race with these two.
Sure, but I think, again, the thing he will be mindful of, that both Daniel and David are both very confident in their finishes. And so he'll be aware that he has been beaten by both in finishes in a marathon. And so, there's going to be a lot going through his head right now about, at some point, do I turn my wheel and try and get a bit of a gap, because do I want to be going down the mile with two very experienced racers? I mean, David is a joy to watch when it comes, a masterclass of putting himself in the right position, drafting, picking the right wheelchair racer to get behind and slingshot round. 2017, he fondly told me about in 2017. It was actually these three again. It was a bigger group, but these were the main three that were away, and he got in behind Hug coming off the final bend, and in his words he said Hug looked one way to look for Daniel, and David came the other side of him and took the win. Which he smiled big when he told me about that. And so again, this, even for him, he might I would think he's very happy with the way the race is panning out right now. He's sat at the back, he's putting in 30% less effort than the guy at the front, and so far, and this, correct me if I'm wrong, I haven't seen him hit the front of these three yet. I've seen it's been Hug and Daniel doing the work. So again, that's going to all add up if it carries on like this.
When you spoke, Chris, you've been down in the athlete hotel speaking to a lot of the athletes, and Eden Rainbow Cooper mentioned that the etiquette is to share. To share the lead, and we see that in triathlon a lot. We do see it in the peloton in big cycling competitions. And you're right, at the moment David Weir isn't playing ball, but I've mentioned it already. There's a lot of prize money on the line today for these athletes, and we talk about these wheelchair innovations. They're not cheap, and I'm kind of of the school of thought that racing is racing. Yes, there's an etiquette. Yes, you're friends and you want to help each other out, but on race day, each man for their own. And David Weir, you're right, Chris, you've picked that out. At the moment, we haven't seen Weir perhaps do his turn at the front.
Yeah.
Romanchuk just ahead at the moment. Hug in second, the defending champion, the course record holder, and David Weir, a Paralympic superstar on his 25th edition of the London Marathon, sitting in third place at the moment, hunting his 21st podium finish. So next out on the roads of London is the elite women's field. Here's a look at the start list for the runners. Headlining, of course, Assefa Tigist Assefa of Ethiopia, the new world record holder. It was a sensational 2:11 back in Berlin in September. She hasn't raced since, but when you've got a performance like that under your belts, very hard to look past Assefa, but we do have to run the race. And there are a whole host of British athletes be showing form, trying to run personal bests, and perhaps trying to have a bit of a bid at an Olympic spot. On the women's side, it's very tough. There's just one spot left for that British team. It's Jocelyn Jepkosgei who's warming herself up, looking a little bit chilly here on the start line. And she's no stranger to marathon majors. 2022 champion in the London Marathon, Yalamzurf Yahalo. She fell at 20 miles in 2022 and got up and won, and we thought that was the most bizarre thing we'd see at the London Marathon. And then there was Safan Hassan last year. No title defence for Hassan this year. She is focused on preparing for the Olympic Games. Ruth Chepngetich next to be introduced, two-time Chicago winner, and she was second behind Hassan in the autumn in the Chicago event again. Peres Chepchirchir is the defending Olympic champion this year. She won her 3rd World Half Marathon title, but then pulled out of the New York Marathon injured, focused instead on the London Marathon here today. Bridget Kosgei broke the 16-year-old world record of Paula Radcliffe with 2:14 back in 2019. Still one of the fastest times ever. Only made it around about 500 metres last year with a hamstring injury though, so let's hope the Kenyan stays in longer and gives this woman, Tigist Assefa, a run for her money. 66.20 and then 65.33 for that new world record of 2:11.53. Assefa ran alone for the last 16 miles of that race, and she could have more company today. Whether Assefa sits with the pacemakers or whether she pushes on to the 4. The race is underway for the elite women. Have a whole host of pacemakers helping them out. Callie Thackeray and Charlotte Purdue there on the left-hand side of the road, right-hand side of your picture. They are already selected for the British team, and they're going to be in the middle of this field trying to help other athletes target that Olympic qualifying mark of 2:26.50. That's Becky Briggs and Alice Wright on the British side will go for that. We'll try and keep you up to date with those British athletes, but we will, of course, focus on the front of the field. And one of the storylines for this elite women's race is very much Mary Keitany's women's only world record, 2:17.01, the mark that they are aiming for. And we could perhaps start to get excited and look at that course record of Paula Radcliffe, 2:15.25. But we'll let the athletes get to halfway and very much look to Assefa to see what she does, whether she's content to go with the pacemakers here, which are going to be set at 67.30, or whether she wants to push on a little bit more.
Yeah, no, it's been a bit of a talk through this week. What is Assefa going to do? And she had an air of confidence about her at the press conference, which stood out. It stands to reason. She is the current world record holder by over 2 minutes. She's still very new to the race, to the event. Sorry, but this is a world-class field. 3 of the 4 fastest women in history. You've got Olympic champions, ex-half marathon world records. Let's not beat around the bush. This is a stacked field, and every woman in that front pack has a card that they can put down to say, this is a reason why I have a chance to win this race. And it's going to be very, very interesting. And back to Assefa for a second. She ran the world record in Berlin, regarded as one of the fastest courses in the world. Flat, very simple. There are some tricky parts in this, and she does carry that Achilles issue from the track. She is a Rio Olympian in the 800, and she's moved to the roads to protect that. And the coach talks about his worry about that, and especially at the Olympics, how the course is going to be set up. And so these are question marks that we don't have all the answers. That there's still some rawness to her. She's tucked in behind the pacemakers there. She's clearly on the front foot. But we'll see how this narrative unfolds, and it's very exciting. And let's not forget, all these girls sat in behind there are world class and have a chance in.
It's an incredibly deep field, and London, it's not the fastest of courses. We have seen brilliant women's times here before, but it's not kind of your Valencias or your Berlins in terms of that simplicity and the ability to run kind of unimpeded. You haven't got to wiggle around quite so much. But there is, when you put together a field of this quality, you do get excited about the times they could run. And they put in fantastic pacemakers, and that's very, very useful. It's unique to have a women's only race at the World Marathon Majors. Usually these female fields are embedded in with the men. When we're going for a women's only world record attempt, it's wonderful. But if we look back to that group that are just making their way past the roundabout, it can sometimes be a bit lonely for those athletes that are trying to run off this front group, that are trying to run more in the 2:22s or the 2:25s. They can get very isolated very quickly. So we often see athletes of that caliber go to a different marathon major to try and get pulled along by the other male competitors. But this group, look at the size of that group. I know it's early. I know we've not got too far through the race so far, but that is a lovely, high quality, talented group of women. We catch up with wheelchair athletes. Catherine de Brunner, the Swiss athlete, pushing at the front. She's going round Cutty Sark. They're nearing up to 10 kilometres for the female athletes. She is just at the front, trying to make out some of the other athletes behind, trying to go with the pace here. De Bruyne did something similar last year. She was the athlete pushing the pace and trying to make it a little bit quicker, and she's doing the same again today. She got caught on the line in that sprint down the mall, and she ended up with 3rd place. So De Bruyne trying to get a different storyline here today. You can see she's got her sunglasses on. It is a bright morning down in London.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. It's with there was 5 clear standout athletes in this race, and Catherine De Bruyne is the training partner of our Eden Rainbow Cooper, who's burst onto the scene. Excuse me, and she now, as you mentioned, Hannah, is very grateful for the Weir Academy that she's done, but she now has a new setup, joined Catherine's coach, and who was the ex-Paralympic Dutch coach. Apologies, I need to find the name. It's not in front of me. Hannah might be able to help me. And and she's pulled away, but I'm trying to see if Eden's in the group behind of 3 athletes. I can't quite see, but Catherine's got a gap, and that won't be easy to close down. They're going to have to work hard to get that back, and Catherine's going to have to work hard to maintain that gap. I don't believe it's a winning gap at the moment, but it's clearly something that she's, I'm assuming, thought about before the race, and is now going to commit to that plan.
De Bruyne works with Arnold Mule. That's the coach who's one of the most successful Paralympic coaches ever, and I think.
And I should have remembered that. Sorry,
it's absolutely fine. No. We've got so much to get excited about this morning. So De Bruyne with around about 26 minutes on the clock. She has gone through 10 kilometres already. Her own course record set back in 2022 is 1 hour 38:24. On that occasion, she came through 10K in around about 21:35. We are trying to get 10K splits for these athletes, but they have gone through that mark, and they're heading along the south bank of the Thames here in London. It's kind of a long section here before they get to Tower Bridge and that Flying 400. So just a reminder, the Flying 400 for the wheelchair athletes is just a standalone section off Tower Bridge, and the fastest athlete on that section, regardless of their position in the race, is eligible for prize money and eligible for those all-important World Marathon major points, which they add up over the season, and then they get a load of prize money for that as well. So it's $4,000 for the fastest Flying 400. That went to Susanna Scaroni on the women's side last year. Unfortunately, Scaroni not here this year. She's out with injury. De Bruyne, perhaps when you're trying to win a race, you might not be focused on that Flying 400 quite so much, whereas if you're further back in the race, you might have a bit of fun, try and sprint and see if you can go a bit faster.
Absolutely. I mean, look, they're all professionals, and the Flying 400 is a nice thing to have in there, but they want to win. Let's not be around the bush there. And I think, and Catherine is the current world record holder. She is a world-class athlete, and she wants to be top of that podium. And I would bet she doesn't even know when that Flying 400 starts and ends, because her focus is winning the race and being the first athlete across the line. And again, before the race, my feeling was, and a lot of people's feeling, that we would see 5 athletes away and it might turn into a bit of a sprint, but fair play to her. She's got her head down, and she's that gap's certainly growing. She's getting away, and the other 3 athletes behind, apologies, I cannot see from the pictures who they are, but they're I'm sure going to form a pack to start working together. And see if once they get over the Tower Bridge, whether they might be able to close in. But Catherine, from my understanding, is an athlete who is good round bends, good at keeping the speed up, turning corners, and so I think as the course goes on, the course will suit her more and more, so it could get harder and harder for her to get for the athletes behind to get back on her.
And we were looking at some pretty strong winds today in London, but we think they have not quite lived up to the forecast of yesterday. And I think that makes a difference in the wheelchair races as well. If you're out there on your own and you're getting buffeted by the wind, you could see yourself drift back to a chase pack. But it's pretty nice conditions if you pick out the trees in the background. They're barely moving, so De Bruyne is a good tactic here for me. If she feels good and she feels strong, to just separate herself from the rest of the pack.
Absolutely. The weather significantly changes for the athletes when they get over the water because of the time of the day. As you say, it gets warmer. It's a bit more protected on the other side, especially for the Isle of Dogs. And as you go over the bridge, there's pretty much, it feels like you're running under bridges, between buildings and things. So it's this is the section to certainly open up a bit more open, and the weather is it looks like it's being kind. You can see people in the background setting up all the drinks for the masses that are going to be absolutely smashing their way down these roads in the next few hours, and the crowds are starting to gather, and it's like I say, these ladies and the wheelchair men are trailblazing their way through these roads just to warm them up for the masses that are going to come through, and she's putting on a show. She's putting on an absolute show.
So I have managed to find on the computer system what's going on, and I do think De Bruyne hasn't been picked up on some of the timing mats, and it's crediting Manuela Shah, Madison de Rosario and Tatiana McFadden as being at the front of the race. So I think that's that pack of three. They're behind Catherine De Bruyne at the moment. Eden Raybo Cooper slightly further back, but we head over to the men. Just gone past 30 minutes on the clock. Hugh and Romanchuk have got away from David Weir. He looks like he's struggling a bit further back there, perhaps in third place, being challenged for the podium by Suzuki of Japan. Suzuki was on the podium last time round. Made his 6th London appearance in 2023, the Japanese athlete, and made his first podium. And looking to do that again. You can see David Weir, the British athlete, has got the white shoulders. He's just having to settle in behind Tomoki Suzuki for the moment, but the lead with Marcel Hug and Daniel Romanchuk.
Yeah, this is interesting, and I mean, obviously Hug is, as I mentioned earlier, I'm sure he doesn't want to be in a sprint if he can help it, and it was a case of whether David and Daniel could stick on him, and Daniel's gone with him. We haven't obviously seen how this break has formed, whether it was a tailing off for David or whether that something's happened. We're not sure, but it's great that David has got Suzuki there to work together, and that when there's two of them working together, there's more chance of them closing the gap and getting back on the back of the front two. So this race is far from over. The fact there's two groups of two, it makes it an even battle at the moment. And listen, if there's any downhill sections, that gap can close very, very quickly. And so I'm sure that David, with his wise head on his shoulders, will be aware that, and obviously, as we know, knows this course very well. And if there's any signs of closing that gap, I'm sure he'll find a way.
You can see the graphic there telling us it's 8 seconds from Hug and Romanchuk back to David Weir and Tomoki Suzuki. And 8 seconds, it looks like more, doesn't it, on the road when they spread out behind, but it's moments like that. Hug sat up and said, come on Romanchuk, where are you? It's your turn at the front. And we see this again, I made a comparison to cycling already, but when a group isn't organised and they don't have a quick kind of rotation there of leaders, that's when the time starts to bleed away. And normally we've got Hug out on his own, pushing a very consistent pace, but you can see Romanchuk here, he's taking a break when he's on the front, and that's probably not what you want. You'd want Romanchuk to keep pushing, and you can see the result of that, those two looking at each other and changing positions. Hugh checks over his shoulder, and Suzuki and Weir are right back on this. They've closed up 8 seconds very quickly there. It looks like it could be slightly downhill here in this section of the course. But that's not good news for Hug and Romanchuk. They tried to drop David Weir and they haven't managed it, and Weir can take a breather again as he slots in to 3rd place.
And I think that nicely demonstrates, Hannah, just how important it is if you open up a gap, the effort it takes to do that and then to maintain it, which Catherine at the moment in the women's race is obviously doing. She's staying on it, but Hug didn't feel, whether it was confident enough, whether it was tactical, whatever it might be, to keep pushing it. And Daniel's not fully seen it through, and between the two of them, and now the gap's closed, and David and Suzuki are back on the back. But again, going back to previously when I spoke to Weir, he was, and the etiquette of taking the lead. Weir, I've known him for a long time, but one of the things about him, he's a fierce competitor. And when I asked him about the etiquette of taking lead, he's like, hey, I'm here to win. This is racing. This is elite. This is world class. This is, I'm not someone's friend when I'm racing. And he's just a very he is a world-class athlete. He has been since 8 years old, and he mentioned about when conversations about the greatest sports people ever, he was, you know, he's talking about himself. Hey, look how long I've been doing this. Look at what I can do. And he's absolutely spot on. He's 45 now, and he's still mixing it with the world's best, and he's very, very savvy. And so, again, in this scenario, when there's 4 of them now, and it will be interesting to see if anyone, obviously we're all going to be looking at Hug as potentially be the person to make a break and see it through, because at the moment, with 4 of them in a finish, I'm sure, and Weir's savviness, I'm sure he'll like how this is panning out so far.
I always think when we look at competitive athletics, especially in the endurance events, the slower a race goes, the less to the script it goes. It just throws the door open for surprise results and unexpected things to happen. And Marcel Hug, for me, the fact that he's not, we've lost Suzuki here, haven't we? There he is. Oh, he snuck over to the other side of the road, the Japanese athlete trying to catch a break. You can see the blue dotted line on the road that Romanchuk, Weir and Hug are sticking to. That's the shortest line, and Suzuki has chosen to go over to the other side. When you make a big push like that and a big move, and you don't want someone on your coattails, you don't want to be helping them with drafting. So Suzuki, who was some 8 seconds back around about a mile ago, has put himself in the lead, and Hug, at the moment, the first athlete really responding. Romanchuk, perhaps he's a little bit tired. He was on the front of the pairing with Hug, and when Hug and Romanchuk were ahead, it was almost like Romanchuk was the weakest link, and he couldn't quite keep that pace going. And again, he's had to use Hug to pull himself back to the group. But Suzuki, oh, what a shame for him. That move absolutely neutralised in around about 20 or 30 seconds. But this is what the athletes will do. They'll test each other out, and they'll try and see if they're going to respond. But back to my point about a slower race, they are off championship record pace. They went through 10 kilometres in just outside 20 minutes, so some minutes slower than Marcel Hug was last year when he hit his course record. So we are setting up for a tactical race here, and I really, really hope that these athletes stick it together through the next sort of 10 miles or so, and we get to see them have a sprint finish. They're just working their way through Deptford, and they will head towards Tower Bridge and that halfway point. Not too long for those men before they hit that point.
No, absolutely. And I think, again, they talked a lot to me about the kind of that nervous energy that does get felt at these points where you're trying to keep a very mindful, and that Suzuki making that burst, you know, it's on him to keep the pressure on if he wants to open up, and it's up to one of the other 3 to close the gap, and the others follow. And again, David was not the one to react, it was Hug the one to react, and then they got in behind, and just, you know, David's very passing the 11-mile point here. He's very much just making certain he's spending the least amount of energy to cover these breaks, and like I said before, he knows this course so well. He'll know if there's a break, and if there's a downhill section, he can close the gap slightly easier. And they mentioned, and you mentioned the blue line in the course. Yes, it's the shortest line, and it's the measuring line. However, for these guys, that's not a thought process. They likened the way they take these lines like Formula One. So they will take wider lines, especially if they're coming in at speed, so they can maintain their speed out of the corners. So when they do take the hands off and to turn, they try and hold on to as much speed as they can, which obviously gets more and more relevant, especially till the latter stages where every second, every metre counts. But at the moment, you can see them all kind of just jostling around, finding positions, and I do enjoy seeing how Weir is just so far clearly being the clever one in the group, and like I say, I've still yet to see him hit the front. Have you? I
really haven't. We'll have a Weir watch to make sure to see whether he does go to the front. I am all for tactics like that. That was very much my style as an athlete. I'm very happy to sit in and have a sprint finish. Romanchuk, for me though, Daniel Romanchuk, the American at the back, he's looking like he's a bit more laboured than the other athletes. Suzuki happy to take his turn at the front again, and they've got a pack of 4. I don't think there's any danger of them adding any other athletes to this 4. It looks like a big gap behind. So now I think when we've got an established group like this, athletes like Suzuki and perhaps Hug are thinking, how much of a sting can I take out of David Weir before we get to Birdcage Walk? And Romanchuk as well. I think Romanchuk potentially just in survival mode at the moment. He could be taking a breather, ready to launch an attack, but there is just a gap opening up between the American and the British athlete in third and fourth.
Yeah, I think he does, to my eye, look the vulnerable one of the group. But again, these guys will understand the gaps and how much you can kind of almost rope-a-dope off the back. Obviously in running we talk about that kind of invisible band at the back of a pack, and you don't want to let that band stretch too much before it snaps and you lose contact, and it's quite mentally and physically demoralizing, and that gap 1 or 2 meters can very quickly turn into 10, 20, 30 and you're off, and that invisible band snaps and you're away. But certainly in this sport, especially on the downhills, like we say, we saw 8 seconds turn into nothing very quickly, and so again, how much he is sort of using that kind of hanging off the back just to give himself a respite, and how much there is actual fatigue in there and struggling with the pace. But as you mentioned, this is not, all of these guys have gone a lot quicker than this, so this is very much that it's all very much within their scope and their abilities right now. And but I would anticipate, as we just go over 40 minutes, so we're basically coming up to halfway. I don't think distant wise we're close to coming over the bridge. It's going to get a lot more technical, and there will be a lot more opportunities to get a jump on groups and get away. So maybe Hugues is just thinking, my best opportunity here just to take the sting out and get a gap and maintain that gap is when he starts getting to the more technical section around the Isle of Dogs.
Marcel Hugues, he keeps grabbing that right-hand side, and these athletes, you mentioned it as well, one of the other conversations you had with them, they want to get out of these chairs as quickly as possible. They're not massively comfortable. These chairs are built for speed, not for comfort, and that's part of that etiquette of, come on, let's get this race moving and get out of here as quickly as possible. And we do see them sometimes sit up and reposition themselves, but Hugues keeps doing the same thing, and he keeps pushing at that right-hand side. It makes me wonder whether he is still a bit banged up from Boston. And he just looks a bit frustrated there. Every time he looks over the shoulder, they're all there. And yet again, David Weir just taking a ride, not pushing at the front.
Weir is, we can keep going on about it. He is, he won his first, I might be correct, but his first mini marathon was when he was 8 years old. That is, quick maths on that, that's 38 years of years ago. And an interesting fact they mentioned actually in the hotel this week, that 4 people today in the London Marathon masses have the same date of birth as that day that he competed in his first mini marathon. So he's got a lot of history. He is, as they go over the bridge and we're coming up to halfway, he is stuck on Hugues, which is interesting to see again. He's the first to respond, but again, he's a smart guy, and it's very, like I say, he's got a lot of history here. He knows this course, and it's a very, I don't think you can rebrand it London Weir, but
So Hugues first over Tower Bridge. They'll just go past the athlete hotel, the elite athlete hotel. So if they were feeling a bit stressed, they might want to step off, but these athletes all look okay. And this is our first look at the flying 400. Hugues at the front at the moment. David Weir hasn't hit the front here. Might he see this as an opportunity? The points accumulate over the whole season. The prize money, an extra $4,000 today if you're the fastest over this section. Of course, there's going to be other athletes, like Sir John Boyce Smith, Simon Lawson further down. They might be have a go at this. But at the moment, Marcel Hugues and David Weir taking the bait almost, perhaps using the downhill section of Tower Bridge as an opportunity to lift their pace as well, but it could just be motivated by that flying 400. And that is where they've just been. And Marcel Hugues did manage to hold off David Weir. I think if you're leading for much of a race and you get to a section like that where there's some extra prize money involved, you would certainly not give way there. You'd be pretty stubborn. And great from Daniel Romanchuk to get himself back into the story here. Suzuki, the athlete, struggling. That's the end there, I think, of the flying 400. And Romanchuk, I think he might have put maybe his last bit of energy. You can see he just stops pushing and takes some recovery there, Romanchuk. Hug has kept his rhythm going, as has Weir, but Romanchuk's got a decision to make here. That got him back into the pack. Suzuki perhaps was just making a tactical decision here that he didn't want to spike his lactic and his heart rate over that 400 metres. And Romanchuk, yeah, just sits right back up and recovers. But Romanchuk, he's got himself back on a podium position here. He probably should just keep going and try and stay with these two.
I'd actually give the flying forward of the four we just saw. I think Daniel kind of won that one amongst them, even though he was off the back, because it's measured by your own personal 400, not the person leading. So I'd give that to Roman, Daniel. But we'll wait and see what the official figures, like you say. There's lots more athletes that can at the back can have a go at that. But I think looking at that, it was interesting. I mean, Hug looked like he was going to take that flying forward as an opportunity to break the field or whatever, but it's all come back together, but it all falls under the umbrella of just testing, and he's putting in, he looks like he's putting in a little bit of a burst again. It's all about that just little burst, testing the field, seeing how people behind are going to react. Are you going to come with me? And Suzuki on the last two injections of pace hasn't reacted. So whether that's a sign he may not be able to be there for much longer, we'll see.
The women's turn to head over Tower Bridge. That'll see them around about halfway. As expected, quite a big pack in the elite women's wheelchair race. They are headed there for the first time. Is that Eden Rainbow Cooper? I'm trying to make out the strip here and the numbers that they have on their helmets, but there is the start of the Flying 400. It could be Madison de Rosario in the dark blue. And they are launching their challenge towards that $4,000 prize pot. These athletes have been spread out. Last time we saw them with Catherine de Brunner at the front. And here they go towards the Flying 400, heads down, arms pumping, trying to get themselves an extra bit of prize money. And there goes Catherine de Brunner. She was our long-time leader. She behind that group now. That whole pack must have worked supremely well. Or was that the end of the men's field? That was the end of the men's field. Our apologies. This is the lead of the women's race. Catherine de Brunner is out in front. I was thinking that was absolutely flabbergasting. I didn't recognise any of those athletes. There's Catherine de Brunner. Will she lift her pace for the Flying 400? Those men that did go through that big pack, they were working supremely well through that section. They could push themselves up into the overall standings. But de Brunner, as expected, she is still out in front. Now, she's not on any of the computer systems at the moment. That's causing the confusion for us as we try and track this women's race. I think de Brunner's timing chip hasn't maybe been activated or been working quite correctly, because she's certainly our race leader. But we don't have any splits for her. The splits start with Manuela Shah, Tatiana McFadden and Madison de Rosario, who must be in the group behind.
I just hope they always say in a technical meeting, no chip, no prize money. So let's hope there's not going to be any of that, because she's obviously with parity in the paychecks, that's a lot of money to lose, but I'm sure it'll all be fine. But yes, the timing chick, and I think we're going to see the chasing lead female athletes coming through now.
That looks more like it. These three pushing really well together. It is Shah, McFadden and de Rosario. Hey, working together could have a shot at a bit more prize money. So there's a few more athletes coming through. Apologies on the identification here, but every athlete down this field, regardless of where they are in the race, has an opportunity at prize money here at the Flying 400, and that's why you're seeing these athletes pushing like they're almost approaching the finish line. And working really, really well. Catherine de Brunner miles out in front again. Apologies, no splits for Catherine de Brunner at the moment, but the way she's pushing, the way she's looking, and where we've seen her visually on the course, she could be well on for a course record. Her own course record set back in 2022 when she took the win there is 1:38.24.
At this point, she's going to keep the world record holder position at the
All right, here we go. That is Madison de Rosario at the back of this chase pack. You can see her blonde ponytail. So I think this will be Manuela Schär, Tatiana McFadden, and the defending champion de Rosario.
McFadden looks like to be at the front, with Schär in second as they come up to the flying 400, which again, it'll be interesting to see if any of them fancy their chances of getting that extra payday, and hopefully their chips are all working. Manuela Schär hitting the front, Rosario in second, Tatiana in third. Manuela Schär's got a bit of a gap. She looks like she's giving that some welly, actually. She looks like she's giving this this 400 sprint a bit of a serious take. As we get blank bridges. I mean, trying to see, we're going to struggle obviously to see if she keeps that going, but at the moment we've got images of I assume waiting to see if Eden Rainbow Cooper comes over the hill. I can just see an arm popping out from behind, so I assume that might be Eden coming over towards her potential opportunity to sprint and get that 400 prize fund. And we're back to Catherine at the front. Again, she's got a healthy gap. That's one thing's for sure. We may not have the chip time, but we can see there's a big gap, and she's clearly on her way to another victory to add to her CV.
I think De Bruyne would have been absolutely gutted to miss out on that sprint finish last year. She did much of the early work and lost out round Birdcage Walk on the mall. And I think De Bruyne has just taken matters into her own hands today, pushing herself all the way out to the front. So this is a look at the Boston champion from last week, Eden Rainbow Cooper. She's got Wakoko Toshida for company, and Eden Rainbow Cooper spent much of her career as a track athlete, so this flying 400 here could be her best opportunity at World Marathon Major points today and prize money, because she's quite some gap back from the leaders. Eden Rainbow Cooper did mention the downhill nature of Boston and those fast downhills where she hit peak speeds of 68 kilometers per hour suited Eden Rainbow Cooper, and that today might not be quite the same course for Eden Rainbow Cooper. It might not favour her, but as we look towards the Paralympics, it's a very hilly course in Paris.
Absolutely.
Of course, no marathon for the Paralympians in Paris. I think they're all just track based. So apologies there. The World Marathon Major is very much their peak of their marathon season. First look at the drinks break for the elite women. Chaos, Chris, an elite runners drink station.
Don't get me started on that first drink station. When you get a first look at that drink station at the front of the field, you know your bottle's there, you just got to find it. But if you're a few packs back, it's the first couple of drink stations and the carnage that ensues, because as you can see, there's a big pack. If they go for a drink and they accidentally knock another drink over, then the person behind in a chasing pack doesn't have a drink. So it helps to be at the front, and it helps to have a clear view. But they mentioned that the pacers have their drinks on a different station, and one of the pacers is drinking, which again, they're not going the whole distance, but this is a hot pace. You know, you've got to be a world-class athlete to be able to pace this group of athletes. 67:30, and they will want to go as far as they can and take this group as far as they can. And so the pacers have got a big job and a big part to play in how this race pans out. But again, as we talked about, there's a big group together, and it's hotting up nicely.
Through 10K for the elite women's, and here is our first look at the elite men's. They get underway in around about 2 or 3 minutes, and as always, just such strength and depth in the elite fields here at London. Kenenisa Bekele top of the pile there, and he's got a whole host of men with personal bests under 2:04 for company. There's also British interest further down the field with the likes of Emile Caresse, Callum Hawkins, and a debut from Mark Scott. Here is Callum Hawkins, twice fourth at the World Championships over the marathon. He led the Commonwealth Games marathon and the Gold Coast for so long, and then fainted. He was unable to finish in the hot, humid conditions in Australia. But Hawkins, as with Mark Scott and Emile Caresse, looking to impress the Great Britain selectors. The selections for the British Marathon team will take place tomorrow. Mark Scott on his much anticipated debut here in London. Emile Caresse debuted last year here at this event, and it was a wonderful debut for Caresse. 2:08.07 is the third fastest time ever by a British man. He's looking to go even faster this year. This is Leïl Gebrselassie. He picked up a bronze in Budapest after a 4th place finish here in London Marathon last year. Very consistent at hitting podiums at the World Marathon Majors. Tamerich Tola took the win in Eugene at the World Championships. He's been very good in London Marathon as well. First podium for him last year, it was 3rd in 2:04.59. Kenenisa Bekele is a phenomenal athlete, almost ageless. He set a world over 40 record in Valencia. A bit of a comeback for me, that 2:04.19, back to his very, very best. He's trying to make a bid for his 4th Olympic Games here. The Ethiopian selectors looking with a keen eye to the likes of Bekele and Tola. This race being set off by Kelly Holmes, the Olympic 800 and 1500 metre champion from 2004. She also ran just outside 3 hours for the marathon here on this course a few years ago.
She's taking her job seriously, isn't she?
All focus from Dame Kelly Holmes as she sets off the elite men and 50,000 mass runners. You're right, Chris, all business from Kelly there.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect anything else. She just looked very serious, like, I've got a button to press and I'm going to push it well.
Exactly when I meant to. Impeccable timing if she's sprinting down a home straight or starting the TCS London Marathon. So this is the final start line of the 44th edition of this wonderful race here in London. It's such a day for the city. Whether you take part, so many athletes love to take part in it. So many people love to spectate. And as always, we've got someone trying desperately to get their 20 seconds of fame at the front of the field. I don't think he even made it 50 metres.
Let's hope he finishes.
Yeah, that'd be embarrassing. You might win the first 100 metres, but if you don't finish, it's not allowed. And already he's floundering there on the left-hand side. He's hit lactic. It's way too early to be redlining like that. He might have to walk a bit, let some of the other athletes get ahead of him. I'm just going to have a re-look at the course map and where these athletes are headed for the next 2 hours or so for the elite men, 3, 4, 5 hours for the rest of them. These athletes flood through the start line. Many waves here. Each athlete will enter their sort of target time and they'll be put in a different wave. Have a look at the championship wave there, many of the best club runners in Britain. And this is where they're going to be going for the next few hours. They start in Blackheath and Greenwich Park, where we've just left them, and they head out here to 5K. They'll then head back towards central London. Around 6 miles, they'll hit Cutty Sark, the famous British tea clipper ship of the late 1800s. Lots of crowd noise around there. They then follow the south bank of the River Thames, all along here, making their way towards the iconic Tower Bridge, and they then wiggle through the financial district, and then they make their way past Rainbow Row for the second time, celebrating the LGBTQIA+ community, and then they'll whiz along to the Houses of Parliament and Westminster and Big Ben and the welcome site of St James's Park, and their final half mile or so they'll swing in front of Buckingham Palace, and then they'll finish on the Mall. And glory and satisfaction will await these athletes, and joy and satisfaction for this lot back here. Again, some of the best club athletes we've got in Britain. You can see many a club vest picked out down there. And at the front, it will be fast times, plenty of prize money, plenty of World Marathon Major points, and perhaps a spot on an Olympic team. The Kenyan and Ethiopian teams are incredibly competitive. And I mentioned this being the last World Marathon Major of the year. This is their sort of last opportunity to impress those selectors.
And very quickly, we turn to the men to see how it's looking at the front. And again, this is where it's like everyone's just trying to find their position. Everyone will be looking for their pace group, looking for their pacer, trying to get into position, trying to just get themselves into that marathon rhythm and that marathon mindset. It's a very much like dominoes getting into line for the first 5K, and it is a generous 5K as we mentioned. And as the field will start to fan themselves out and the groups start to form, it'll be a lot easier for us to see where things are. I can see in the background Jack Rowe and his pace group in the background. Jack Rowe, someone, a British guy who's got the Olympic standard for the 5K, really coming of age in the last couple of years, Aldershot lad. And he has a big responsibility, along with a couple of the paces, with Emile Caresse, one of our stars, coming through on a very hot pace of, we believe, 62, just over 62 and a half, which will be really interesting to see if he can hold that, because that opens up British records. Mo's British record could be under threat, depending, and him and his coaching group and his agents seem very bullish about his chances today. So you can see how close they are to the front pack, and this front pack is a 61.15 pace, so it's hot, it's really hot, conditions are there, the talent is there, but Emile's right there, and it's going to be interesting to see how the British athlete fares. And a third group in the background, you can see that's the Olympic hopefuls, the British Olympic hopefuls, with a few, Mark Scott, as we mentioned, the debut, and we have Mohammed and some others that really have their eye on that Olympic standard, and there are 2 more places up for grabs. So this is going to be an interesting one, and the groups are starting to find their rhythm and find their places on the road already.
Check in back with the women's field. Still a lovely big pack. It'd be wonderful if we see a similar pack develop on that men's side. Assefa, the world record holder, looking absolutely fine. They are going lightning quick at the moment. 10-kilometre split was 31.26, and it takes some running, doesn't it? And that's 9 seconds outside of the women's only world record pace by Mary Keitany. But we do think they're starting to lift their pace as they move towards 15 kilometres. And we were going to point out that we've got a pacemaker slotted a bit further back in the group here. Let's see if we can pick her out, because they've almost let a pacemaker be pace-made so that they can hopefully come to the fore and help in the last, in that second half. Here is a look at the lead British athletes. Mhairi McLennan on her debut, the Scottish athlete, alongside Alice Wright, a 2:29 competitor at her best, and she will be hunting down that Olympic qualifying mark of 2:26.30. The 2 athletes in front, Callie Hauger-Thackeray and Charlotte Purdue, already have the qualifying mark. They are already selected for Paris, and they are out there on the roads doing their very best to help those women nudge towards that qualifying mark. There are so many British women with that Olympic qualifying mark. It's going to be very, very tough for the selectors to separate them tomorrow and add 1 more to the British team. Wish all the athletes today the best of luck, and those selectors tomorrow. So Assefa edging herself ahead of the pacemaker. Last mile there at 5:14 for mile 8. Kind of compare that to Paula Radcliffe's course record of 2:15. They were a tiny bit off that, but the changes in shoe technology, Chris, over the last few years, we don't see the tail off and the slowing down in the second half that we used to in marathons.
Absolutely, and it was interesting in the press conference, Assefa's coach talked about now, if you're not brave, if you don't, in old words, overcommit, you've got no chance. I mean, this marathon running has changed in so many ways. Even the drinks and the fueling and the understanding and what you have available has changed the game in a way that we're seeing. Assefa is the first athlete to break 2 minutes for an 800 and 2:20 for a marathon. And in a British terms, Jess Judd is someone who is turning her hand. She's run a 67.5, I think it is, and she's broken 2 minutes for 800, and I'm sure she'll make a marathon debut, so we could have a British athlete that is doing it. But there are a lot of track athletes, even as short a distance as 800, coming to the roads, and I feel the shoe technology is helping that, and it's a different era. Let's not try and compare and contrast. It's right now we're seeing athletes that are braver than ever. They're training more than ever, distance-wise, speed-wise, and we're seeing some times that are just mind-boggling. And I think at the moment as well, like as I say, with Assefa's coach talking about it, if you don't overcommit, and you're sitting off the back hoping for people to just fade away, you're really closing your chances of getting on a podium. And these girls will know that all of these will be thinking to themselves, I want to be on that podium, and I'm on that podium. I'm staying with this pack till I can't anymore, because if I try and play the waiting game, it's not going to work. But everyone is there. The pace is good, the pace is hot, but again, a safer to me is itchy. To sit on the side of a pacer rather than behind just shows that she's comfortable, and she's more than comfortable at the moment.
See Amanangole, the pacemaker, with pace number 2 there, just gesturing to a safer and saying, "You're all right, we're going fast enough," but she has got the world record holder on her shoulder. And we mentioned that the studies on the wheelchair side to do with drafting and how much easier it makes it. It's similar for the runners as well. There's a slight drafting effect. It's not as similar because they're not moving as fast and they haven't got the body position that's sheltered like they are in the chairs. But it's also the mental side of it, that the perception of the amount of effort you're putting in and the mental load required to run on your own is a lot more than if you're tucking in a pack. And if these athletes aren't slowing down like they used to, you might as well commit and get yourself in the group. And that's really what many of these athletes have done so far. And a safer, she's just, as that slight bit of inexperience, it's only her 4th marathon ever, her first trip to London, and she's drifting wide. She's not taking the help from the pacemakers, but perhaps she wants more out of these pacemakers. She'd rather that they're there for a shorter amount of time to help her go faster than they stuck to that 67.5 that the meeting organisers have tried to organise as they try and attack that women's only world record.
I mean, a lot of what's going on right now, they're still only 44 minutes into this race, and they're still going to be feeling very mentally and physically fresh. And a lot of what you're doing right now is trying to get bored. You're trying to be bored with what you're doing. You're trying not to feel fatigue. You're trying to just put yourself in a position where you can feel relaxed and try and switch off and just enjoy. And being itchy and stuff is something that inexperienced marathon runners and need to be mindful of, because for these girls, for a lot of them, this so far it's a jog. It's a really relaxing jog, and they need to try and get bored, and a safer puts her arms out just to mind. But again, where they place themselves in the pack will depend on what makes them feel comfortable. For me, I didn't like being in the middle of a pack. It made me feel enclosed and not free, and I like to be off the back, and sometimes give myself 5 or 10 meters off the back, because the drafting effect is not as big. And it's very much about what you feel comfortable with to get yourself over the bridge, over halfway before the racing really starts to begin. And again, with a lot of these girls, they got to be thinking about and being honest with themselves about when they start to feel that red line. If you're starting to feel that red line right now, you need to ask yourself the question, where do I put myself to get back on the right side of it? Because you don't want to be feeling it just yet. You want to be feeling comfortable. And Bridget's, I'm looking at Bridget right now, and I'm just wondering that's not, she's been carrying injuries, she's had a few things. I'm not totally, she didn't look totally comfortable taking that corner. I mean, she's wincing. Did you see that? That's
a good call there, Chris. We've got Bridget Kosgei, the former world record holder, in the orange vest, blue shorts, red socks. That's a good way to pick her out. She is just grimacing ever so slightly. She's already made it significantly further than she did last year, around about 42 minutes further than she made it last year. She was carrying a hamstring injury into the race and barely made it past the first roundabout. Great to see these young athletes out for a run. Just a note on London Marathon's commitment and investment in young athletes in Britain. There was a massive London mini marathon yesterday where the school kids get to run around about 3-4K or so around the finishing section of the London Marathon. It's a real motivator for many young athletes in Britain, and I wonder if these 3 took part in that yesterday, or they're just seeing how long they can live with the fastest marathoners in the world on the women's side. I bet they do know that Assafe is the world record holder. I bet these 3 know exactly what they're doing. The poor one at the back, she's floundering. She's got her gloves on though, so she's come prepared as they go through 15 kilometres. I wonder how far they did there, whether that was a kilometre or a mile, but they have called it quits. And Perez Jepchirchir moves herself to the fore, getting herself well positioned for her drink. And she has picked up 2. That'll be 1 for a teammate, and she's just making sure absolutely she has the right drink, because these drinks are formulated perfectly for each athlete.
Absolutely, and I just noticed Assafe giving the pacemaker a drink. I mean, that is I mean, if that's not just a comment of you better be get to halfway and you go to keep going. I mean, it's not often you see an actual runner looking out for pacemakers, which tells you a lot about her mindset and her attitude. It's quite often the pacer looking after everyone else, but we've got someone that's peeled off the back. I can't see, and this is what happens around water stations. Everyone's jostling. There is a bit of a sprint, and it's happened to me. I've been left behind, and I've had to, and there's a gap opened, and it's not something I can just easily shut down, and I can't see who it is. We'll have to look back who it is, but we will see the odd athletes start to feel this and have to peel back off, and most of them still seem to be there from what I can see. I can't see Bridget, she's still in there in the background, one of the orange vests. I think that's, I can't see quite there, but the point, they've got through the drink stations. None of them look, there's still one athlete, looks like Jepchirchir is still carrying a drink, and they're offering to each other again, because again, they are most of these drinks, there is a lot of similarity, and I'm sure they know each other, and they do. I have missed my drinks before, and an athlete's passed me and confirmed to me which type of drink it is before I've taken it, just because your stomachs tend to get used to a certain type of sugar content and hydration content, but they all look like they've mostly got through that water station. Ofona, Safer checking her watch. She really is mindful of this clock and mindful of the pace, isn't she, Safer?
Well, 47.37 through 15 kilometres. That's the split that's coming up on the tracker for these women, and that's a bit off the target they were hoping for. Back with the male wheelchair racers, and Marcel Hug has got daylight between him and Suzuki or Daniel Romanchuk. I think it might have been the Japanese athlete in second place at the moment, as David Weir was struggling a little bit, and Romanchuk we thought was looking tired before the flying 400. But Marcel Hug is biding his time through the first half of this race. He did try and stay in front through that flying 400, but Hug now pushing away at the front of the race, setting himself up for yet another World Marathon Major podium and yet another World Marathon Major win. But for Marcel Hug, he's not quite got the championship record. At the Paralympic Games, he's not got those Paralympic accolades, perhaps of the likes of David Weir. He's such a marathon specialist, Hug.
Absolutely. He's. I'm trying to make certain I see that. I mean, there's another wheelchair athlete just beyond second place, and we'll try and confirm who that is. But Hug, yeah, he's on his way to marathon greatness in his achievements, and I think today he looks like he's potentially going to win in a slightly different way to how he won in Boston and other races, which again, being versatile, being able to win in different ways is a big part of being a champion, and a champion that gets remembered. We all know how Mo Farah on the track would win in a variety of different ways, and that's what made him tough to beat. And Hug here is he's staying on the pedal here, which is the big sign that he's committed to this gap. I mean, it's clearly a big gap, but again, as we know, gaps can be closed a lot quicker in wheelchair racing than they can in the running races. But at the moment, he's keeping the pressure on. He's obviously finding his rhythm. We're looking at about 15 minutes left, roughly, and I think this is a lead that he won't want to give up easily at all, and he'll want to make certain of this all the way to the end, I believe.
Back with Catherine de Bruyne pushing at the front. And again, apologies, we haven't got splits for de Bruyne, and that is because I think her championship has come off. Oh, we have, for the first time, potentially got Catherine de Bruyne has popped up on my tracker. That is brilliant. We're trying to see how she's moving through different sections of this course. I think she could be nearish to her own course record set back in 2022. That was a wonderful win that day for the Swiss athlete. And a bit of battle within the Swiss athletes always at these World Marathon Majors. Manuela Schär and Catherine de Bruyne always side by side, but de Bruyne at the moment very much controlling the women's wheelchair race.
Back to the women's race. Again, it's as you were. There's plenty. I'd have to do a head count to make certain all the main protagonists are there, but I can certainly see a Safer is there, Bridget's there. We've still got a big group here, and again, we're 53 minutes. We're looking at roughly around Another 14 minutes until we get to halfway. 5:08 mile, last mile. I mean, that's quick. It really is. And these girls are cutting the pace. The pacemaker checking her watch. There really is. Even though there's a race to win here, as I said before, the clock is a big part of that. And that looks like the same athlete that fell off at the drink station in the background. So I'm trying to see who that is, but whoever they are, clearly missed a jump and are not being dropped significantly. So it's a bit frustrating for them to have that gap. But again, if they run their own race, that's absolutely fine. A bit of a wave in the background as well, which is nice to see.
So the elite women working well together as they move through 10 miles at the front of the course. And here is another look at the lead Brits. Mari McLennan is on her debut here, the athlete closest to our screens. The two pink vests, those are the pacemakers, Callie Thackeray, Helga and Charlotte Purdue. And Alice Wright is tucked in, number 72 on her back as well. She's represented Great Britain at European Championships over the marathon, and she's trying to nudge herself onto the Olympic team to join those two women ahead of her. Callie and Charlotte Purdue. What a wonderful first year of marathoning it was for Callie Thackeray. Fantastic debut to put herself on that Olympic team, and running very well over half marathon around that as well. Based over in the States, in Flagstaff, lives and trains at altitude. Charlotte Purdue spends much of her year in Australia. Loves some training over there, pops over to Japan and runs fantastic half marathons there. Those two, your Olympic representatives so far for Team GB. Alice Wright, Mari McLennan, look how close they are to those two pacemakers. They must be feeling comfortable, they must be feeling good, but at very early stages, particularly for someone like McLennan on her debut.
We head back to the men's race, 20 minutes in, and it looks like a big group there. You got a pacemaker at the back. I'm not 100% certain if that pacemaker is there to pick up and just protect himself. I'm sure he is at this stage. He's just there just to be ready to take up the pacemaker's job later on in the race and conserve his energy, just as a way to extend the help that these guys can get later into the race. And just sit back and then come through and do a bit more work in the second half of this race. Just another way in which people are trying to think outside the box to help these athletes, and London Marathon are very good at doing things like that, especially for the British athletes, as we see a lot of pacemakers here today from the British contingency who are part of the Olympic squad and trying to help them get ready for the prep.
Overhead shots back with the women's race, and just a safer still. Right at the front there, you can see her orange vest behind the two pink vests, and she does seem to be urging those pacemakers on. You can see the athlete at the front with the lead pacemaker at the moment furiously checking her watch. She's probably got it set to beep every kilometre or so just to make sure she's on track. And Chris mentioned at this stage in the race for the elite women, you are trying to switch off, you're trying to zone out and just relax and almost get bored and let these miles look after themselves. You don't want to be too engaged and fatiguing yourself and getting overexcited. Conversely, on the flip side, the pacemakers have got to be doing the opposite. They've got so much pressure on themselves to keep this race exactly on pace and to be aware of everything around themselves. They've got to keep themselves out of the way at the drink stations. They've got their own special tables at the drink stations to make sure they pull ahead. 5:04 for the 11th mile. These women are really starting to get moving. I wonder if a safer is just whispering in the ear there of the pacemaker. 5:04 is very good. We keep our eye on Paula Radcliffe's course record of 2 hours 15. I think she was just underneath 57 minutes, Paula Radcliffe, back in 2003, and I think those women were almost identical there through 11 miles.
And to put some of that into context, when you start getting to 5 minute mining flat, that's 65 and a half marathon pace, which for a safer is just inside her world record pace. So for that mile split at least, they were very close to the 5 minute, just to give a little bit more context. But we're going to see a little bit more about how the spread of this first half has gone when we get the half marathon split in around 10 minutes or so, because they, like I say, the first half of the marathon, there are some slightly quicker miles, there's some slightly slower miles, and the way the pacing or the splits work can oscillate based on the course as much as it is about effort. So right now you have to take a little bit with a pinch of salt and just look for the overall times. But still, as we hoped and we thought, the group's still big, it's still strong. And you'll mention, Hannah, about pacemakers. If these girls get to 30k, which is 12k short of the actual total marathon, they'll feel as exhausted as the girls that finished, because it is a stressful job. You are on edge, you're feeling very itchy, every metre, every kilometre is a very intense mind battle, and a complete opposite to what all the athletes are doing. But they're there to help, and they're there to do a job, and there to produce, hopefully, some course records, some PBs, but so far so good.
And when we talk about this London Marathon course and the fact that the second half is traditionally a bit slower, unlike some of the other World Marathon majors with this new shoe technology, when they've just got going and going, the second half of this London Marathon last year was phenomenal from Kelvin Kiptum. He was underneath 60 minutes for his second half. It was the fastest ever half marathon within a marathon. It was sensational to watch. And of course, it's such a shame, this tragic death of Kelvin Kiptum. In February this year. He's not here to defend that title, but his legacy lives on in that sensational course record that, I don't know, I don't see that getting beaten today. I don't see that getting beaten for some time. These men are moving well. They are trying to keep the pace honest, and Tola is a very interesting athlete for me, the Ethiopian in the orange vest. He's actually a training partner of Tigist Assefa, who is leading the women's race at the moment, and another one from their group, Cisse Lema, won Boston on Monday. Their Ethiopian coach decided that it was best to split Tola and Cisse. Gamido Dedofo said if he wants those two athletes to make the Ethiopian Olympic team, they probably need to show the selectors that they're capable of winning a World Marathon major. So to allow Tola and Cisse to do that, he split them across the two different races that are available to them this week, and half the job's done. Cisse won Boston, and now they're trying to get Tamirit Tola to win this race. There's some wonderful splits there through the first few miles.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, I'd be good to talk a bit more about Kiptum at some point later in the programme, but again, he's just to add what an absolute tragedy that was. And we saw a small clip of Emil, which again, hopefully we'll get some updates and go back to him shortly. But yeah, there's some quality athletes, and to go through them a bit, I think some little bits that aren't necessarily. Tola is a big name, as you can see on the right of the screen in the orange vest. Is a big athlete here, won the world champs in 2021, won New York last year in a tough course and a course record, so he comes here with a big CV. But Gabena, you can just see in the blue vest, as he's coming a bit more clear into screen on the left hand side as you look at the screen. Young athlete, incredibly, he's only 19, run 2:05, very raw, and he is someone that will be interesting to see, because there's a few athletes in here that, not on paper, you might not necessarily think of them as for the victory. But Tola and Yeo on the left-hand side are certainly the two kind of studs of the field, if you like. And if I can, I'm trying to see if I can see Mateko in there somewhere, someone who's not finished a marathon before, but was part. Are they in the centre of the screen? In the white vest, orange cycling shorts. I'll probably get crucified for calling them cycling shorts, but that's how I call them. But he is someone who's very interesting. He beat Tola in a half marathon, 58 minutes. Sorry, I'll rephrase that. He destroyed the field when he ran that half marathon. He's brave, he's aggressive, and he was with Kiptum when he ran his world record until 30k, until he had to drop out. So there's a lot to look out for in this race.
Emil Cress going well as these men move towards 10 kilometres. This is the chase pack, so they've got that big group at the front. And we talk about London Marathon and how they support athletes from across the world and their British athletes. Emil Cress ran fantastically well in the spring and a half, in the fall in a half marathon. He was due to race in Valencia and he had to withdraw with a niggle. And he went straight to London Marathon and said, can you help me? Can you give me what I need? And they've done it on the streets of London here. Jack Rowe, the British pacemaker at the front, he's a 5,000 metre runner. We've also got Brian Kwemoy and Charles Matata, two Kenyan athletes that train with Emil Cress in E10. And they are escorting Emile Caresse down the streets of London, exactly the pace he wants. He requested 62.45, 62.30 or so as he tries to get himself further up the British all-time rankings. I credited him with third. He was actually nudged down to fourth with Phil Sessam's 2:08, but he's running really well here, Caresse. That's Henok Tesfaye of Eritrea, number 12 on his back as well, a 2:07 runner, keeping Caresse company. And the elite women head over Tower Bridge. Still such a big pack, all working well together. They've still got pacemakers. Just the one for now, though. The pacemakers just drifting back through the group. This is where the running is going to get tough, and this is where we're going to find out whether this field are willing to work together to maintain a strong pace through the second half of the race. They have still got pace 1 and 2 for company. They still got a safer just tucked in there. 2022 champion Yahalo staying quiet in the back as well, but the casualties are starting to drop off the back of this group one by one. They're just whittling down.
It looks like Ruth Chepngetich is just falling off the back here, and again, that's unlike the racing wheelchairs. That's a significant gap. There isn't a drink station that would have caused that. That's a very deliberate falling off the back, and as the group's starting to pull away, and we will start to see we're getting the 20k split coming through here, 63.35. I'll be honest, my math isn't that quick. I'll be waiting to see where we get the official half marathon split. That's much easier for me to digest.
Well, 63.35 being credited to a safer as the first out of the runners. She has pretty much got all of those splits, and 63.35 is 9 seconds slower than Mary Keitany for her women's only world record. But as we mentioned, the nature of racing, that women's only world record back in 2017, that was very much set where athletes went out hard and they tried to maintain. And these athletes, they are spreading out along the road. You can see the flag blowing with them, perhaps using that segment just to reposition themselves as they're not into a headwind. They're almost sprinting through the flying 400. That was very much for the wheelchair athletes, but they did look like they were working well there.
We're back to the British women, and just a quick note on these young ladies. They are on for Olympic standard pace, and we have the two selected girls pacing, but there are at home we have Rose Harvey and Lily Partridge and
Samantha Harrison.
No, the other pacemaker from the Clara Evans, sorry. So there's a few girls that have the standard at home, and I believe Rose Harvey at the moment is 2:25 from Chicago, has been asked to run a half marathon today to prove fitness. We're not exactly sure on the details of that, but these girls here are obviously trying to put themselves in that conversation, and hopefully they'll have a big headache on Monday to decide between more girls than just the ones that already have the time.
Lead men have wiggled their way around Cutty Sark. Look at the crowds. What's that, 6, 7, 8 people deep? If you want a good view, you've got to get on your dad's shoulders, and it's only going to get busier as the mass fields come through. They will be astounded by the speed these men are moving. This will be the third pack, and this is very much the rest of the Brits. We saw Emile Caresse aggressively going further down the field. You've got Phil Sessamon ran 2:08.04 in Seville to put himself third in the British all-time rankings, and he's down there pacing those athletes. That group is aiming at the Olympic qualifying mark of 2:08.10. Great to see Mark Scott of Great Britain still in there. Paolo Surafelt running well as well, and that's Callum Hawkins, I think, hanging on in that group as well. That's a lovely pack they've got working together around Cutty Sark.
Yeah, and we come back to Emile Caresse, so we'll talk about him for a second. But again, this is one of the things I love about London. You've got 3 pacemakers for 2 athletes. They really do like to take care, and again, Emile Caresse wanted to make it very clear he's here as part of his preparation for Paris. He's here to get in the best shape he can for Paris Olympics. He's very much performance driven. He's very aware that he's got a bright future ahead of him, and it's not all about today. It's not all about the next few weeks or months. He's got a long career ahead, and he wants to take it seriously, and thank goodness, because he is, just for context, he is one of only 2 athletes already with the Olympic standard. He wasn't able to be selected in the first wave because the policy states to be selected you need to not run a marathon after that point in the Olympics, but he's here to get ready.
Marcel Hug having it all his own way, as we expected he would, and it took him a little bit of time to separate himself from the rest of the field. No course record for Hug today, nursing that fall from the Boston Marathon. He's been content to sit in the field and then unleash a ferocious second half here to leave the rest of the men in his wake. As he passes in front of Buckingham Palace, it's now behind him, and it is just the finish line for Marcel Hug as he pushes his way to yet another major marathon win and yet another win here at the London Marathon. He's our first defending champion on the course today. Madison de Rosario further back in the women's field, but Marcel Hug looks delighted. Drama in Boston, he prevailed there nonetheless, and a lot more straightforward for the Swiss athlete today. The silver bullet, Marcel Hug cuts the tape underneath 1:30, and he will have time to turn around, have a rest, and see who is going to come through for second place. Daniel Romanchuk has stuck to his task really well. He looked fatigued at halfway, looked like he struggled to go with the podium positions. That flying 400 brought him to life, and he maintained a podium position. And Daniel Romanchuk crosses the tape second, still underneath 1:30 for the American athlete. Now the battle is on for Tomoki Suzuki and David Weir. Could David Weir possibly be on for a 21st podium? Yes, he is. What a push from David Weir. Last year, in his 24th outing in the London Marathon, he said, I would love to make it 25. And it wasn't quite a retirement announcement, but it was him saying, you know, 25 London Marathons is excessive. But Weir has said he's got a new lease of life. He's no longer looking at retirement. He's looking at the Paris Paralympics. And right now, David Weir is looking at his 21st podium finish. He first came to the London Marathon as an 8-year-old to push in the mini marathon event. And here he is, the stalwart of British wheelchair racing, back in the top 3 at the London Marathon. What a performance. He will be absolutely delighted. Underneath 1 hour and 30 for Weir. What a well-judged race. That will be a welcome sight for the home crowd and for the organisers of London Marathon. They love to see Weir triumph again.
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, he's such a nice guy to go with it, and he said to me last year when he finished London Marathon, he thought that was going to be his last race, and obviously a year later down the road he comes back and gets another podium. I mean, what a guy.
What a guy. And Tomoki Suzuki couldn't match his podium finish last year. That was his first trip to the podium after 6 appearances in London Marathon. Here in his 7th attempt, it's a very credible 4th for the Japanese athlete.
Those towels at the end, they're a nice little addition to your tired arms at the end of a race. But
I think that'll be jubilation for Marcel Hug. And just a note again on the parity in prize money at the London Marathon this year. It's a whopping $55,000 for the win. These athletes train incredibly hard, and it's wonderful to see London Marathon have that parity between the elite runners and the elite wheelchair athletes. It's a good $30,000 for second, $22,500 for third. And the prize money will go 10 deep for these wheelchair athletes today, but the top 3, Hug, Romanchuk and Weir.
Looks like we've headed back to the men's lead front group. 36 minutes on the clock. Nice big group. It'd be good to get down to see if some of the likes of Gabena and Matejko are still in there. Picks that are very interesting for me, as well as the main protagonist, Tola. But again, it's very much as before with the women. These guys are trying to shut off. They're just trying to stay relaxed, make certain getting the drinks in is another big one for these guys, just because they know a lot of the drinks they get in the first half are the ones that are going to make the real difference in the second half of the race. Just getting those first 2 bottles in the system, getting them to work, and knowing you're ticking all the boxes, because when you get to passing 8 miles there in the background, once you get to 10k, 6 miles to go and the race kicks off, it's a lot about how you set up, and a lot of what's going on right now is a setup for when the race gets going. And Tola sitting in the front along with the 19-year-old Gabena. Again, they're showing their they're happy, they're feeling comfortable with the pace, they're on the front foot. Bekele just tucked in behind with his distinctive, for me, the distinctive track style. He's very much on the front foot, very much more of a flicky kind of action from all his track world records and the way he moves. But Tola at the front is someone who likes to run away from fields in the second half, but he likes to set it up. He's got, I mean, 2:04 at New York. He's not messing around. It was a championship record back in November. But again, this is a different course. The second half of this race offers different challenges to these other courses, and there will be a new winner announced, because none of them have won before, so it'll be interesting. And we go back to Emil.
Tesfaye and Caresse working well together. Tesfaye just checking his watch as he sits at the back of the group, but it is metronomic pacemaking from these men. They look great. Look at them. They'll be sheltering Caresse and Tesfaye there from the wind. I've picked up a split, I think, of 29.43 for 10,000 metres for Emil Caresse. If that is right, that is really, really quick, and it's only sort of 20 seconds or so off the lead group at the moment. You can see these bikes from the race organisers sort of flitting between the different groups. But Emil Caresse could be on for a new personal best. That 2:08.07 debut was really, really good here last year on the streets of London. But you've got to kind of take the opportunities as you get given them in our sport. And Emil Caresse, if he feels like he's in good shape and he feels like he's got an opportunity with his wonderful pacemaking, he's got to really go for it. He's third all time in the British rankings with a 60.01 half marathon in the last few weeks as well. So he's certainly rounding into form.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm looking at him running, and I see a guy that's comfortable. I don't see a guy that's finding this pace difficult. He is looking smooth. He's putting himself on the road where he wants, not where his body's telling him, because that's usually a sign of fatigue. And he's sat really nicely. This guy is running at 2.5 low pace. I mean, and he's just shaking out his arms. He's doing all the relaxing strategies you would put in, and he's 40 minutes into the race. And at this point, you would see flickers. You would see flickers of, hang on, this is a bit ambitious. But he was talking very precociously, in a calm way, but not overselling himself. And I think he had a quiet confidence about him, and he knows that he's in good shape. Canova, his coach, knows he's in good shape. And like I say, going back to before, he's here for a purpose. He's here to put a marker down for the rest of his career and get a marker down for Paris. And London Marathon have done a great job. I keep saying it, but it really is a great job to have 3 pacemakers. Look at that, the pacemakers. He's in a pincer movement, a bit like they did in the sub 2 hour attempt. Well, successful in the end for Kipchoge. And he's got even a guy behind will offer some kind of resistance. I know he's not there to help him, he's there to race, but that is also going to help. And we're actually starting to see a pacemaker start to struggle, and Emil look, he's giving him a wave. Come on, you're not done with helping me yet. Again, these are all good signs that Emil is comfortable and happy. And that's, for me, this could get very exciting, because if the front group of leaders, as athletes get tired in the second half, you could see him take, and good lad for taking the inside. That's all legitimate, it's all absolutely fine. That's how the course is measured, because sometimes people get a bit confused by the road markings and the pavements. He's taken the shortest line, he's thinking clearly, and he's very much on it. This is fantastic to see. Come on, Emil, let's keep on this, mate.
Emil Caresse passes through 9 or 10 miles. Catherine de Brunner enters birdcage walk, and she has pushed her way ahead of the rest of the field here. So far ahead of the rest of the women. We were getting confused with some of the men as they went over Tower Bridge, thinking surely that's the next pack behind. But de Brunner pushing well. Hasn't had much company here. She's within the last mile, and she'll have lovely crowd support through this section. And she is the course record holder back from 2022. Look at that, some 5 minutes 25 we've been told on one of our screens here. The gap between Catherine de Brunner and Manuela Schär, that is such a big winning margin. And de Brunner has just got her head down and got on with this. She won this event back in 2022. She had to settle for third in the bunch sprint with Madison de Rosario and Manuela Schär last year. De Brunner leaving absolutely nothing to chance here in the 2024 edition of the London Marathon. Yeah,
this has been a dominant performance. I mean, we felt like the women's race might offer the potential for a bit of a sprint with a few of them together, but Catherine said, nah, not for me. I'm gonna stamp my authority. I am the world record holder. I come here and I'm gonna take this race by the scruff of the necks. And she spent a lot of time out on her own at the front. And I think this would be a pleasing sight for her to be able to come round these two corners, knowing she's got not even no sign of a sprint finish for her. She's going to enjoy this moment and just soak it up.
Catherine de Bruyne started marathoning in 2022, so she's still fairly new to this event, but she has been a regular feature on the World Marathon major podiums over the last 12, 24 months. And this is going to be a second London Marathon win for de Bruyne, her third trip to the podium, and it's back to the top. Swiss athlete has a wonderful lifetime best of 1:34.16. She's going to be outside at that today. It's going to be a wonderful performance nonetheless. She's tired, she's fatigued, she's stuck to her task incredibly well. She nips just under 39 minutes, pretty close to her own course record of 1:38.24. Job fantastically well done for the Swiss athlete Catherine de Bruyne. And she is going to have a long and lonely 5 minutes or so here to catch her breath. She'll be totally ready for those podium shots. There's Manuela Schär, Madison de Rosario, and the likes are some 5 minutes behind her down the road.
And it's a lovely shot to see her cross the line, dropping the tape slightly before so it doesn't get caught up on anything. And that, look at that smile on her face. That's a $55,000 smile right there.
Certainly is. Let's talk about the, we've talked this morning already about those new wheelchairs, the new carbon wheelchairs, and the price tag attached with those. There is sponsorship available for the Paralympic athletes, but when you think about the money they have to spend on equipment, far exceeds that of the athletes on the Olympic side. And the prize money would be very, very welcome. From one Swiss athlete to another, good job.
She's probably asking, where'd you get that towel from?
You should say, am I good enough for a silver helmet now?
There it is, there it is. But I'm sure these guys will be eager to get the podium, get out the chairs, and as you mentioned before, they are slightly uncomfortable, but they're just discussing their victories, and it's a nice group that travel around together, going from majors to majors, and they have a real good bond between them all. And it's and we turn to see the next athletes coming up towards the finish. I can't quite see where they are. They round in the corner for the final bend.
And this is some of the wheelchair athletes a little bit further back. It's Brian Seaman of the United States leading compact group here. Seaman is here competing in the London Marathon for his 6th time. Just working well, this group. I think it'll be probably around, I think they're still in the top 10 for the wheelchair finishers, and a whole host of men flooding over the line. Catherine de Bruyne could have been with those athletes if she'd had some help, but unfortunately she ended up pretty isolated. Our next athlete over the line, Michael McCabe of Great Britain. It's Michael McCabe cutting the tape there in 1:41.
Bit of a sprint going on in the background between these three. Every position counts. These wheelchair athletes know the prize goes 10 deep, and these guys will want to earn every penny they deserve after this. It looks like Seaman's got the nod with Jimenez in the finishing third out of the three of them. But again, like I say, the parity means that every position position really does count all the way down the field, and so it makes a big difference. And as you said, Hannah, these aren't cheaper pieces of equipment, and so to keep themselves going, keep themselves in these races, and keep themselves moving forward towards these specialised bikes is very important.
I think we are looking here at Manuela Schär, the 2nd placed female athlete. just making her way round third cage walk. Manuela Schär still very much on the comeback from having her leg broken in 2022 in a training accident. She was out on a training ride and set her back somewhat, but not as much as you would have expected, to be honest. I think that would have been very traumatic and very disruptive for Schär, but when you look at her accolades and at her CV, it has carried on really well. She won this race back in 2019 and 2021. She has been on the podium 8 times at London Marathon. She was originally injured in an accident back in 1993 and started wheelchair sport at the age of 14. She's no stranger to racing in a wheelchair. The Swiss team is so strong. And the infrastructure and the competition and framework for the Swiss athletes in the wheelchairs is brilliant. You have to see them have very long and successful careers. Manuela Schär has managed to separate herself from Madison de Rosario. I saw de Rosario, McFadden and Schär together over Tower Bridge, but Manuela Schär has put on a show here in the second half. She's going to be the 3rd Swiss athlete on the London Marathon podium here in 2024. Wonderful win for Marcel Hug and Catherine de Brunner. Schär is pushing her way tiredly round St James's Park in front of Buckingham Palace and on to the Mall. There's been a decision made by Schär, de Rosario and McFadden that they just couldn't live with the early pace of Catherine de Brunner. The winner separated herself very early on and dominated this, and Manuela Schär has had a lonely last 10 or 11 miles or so, but second place at the 2024 London Marathon in the wheelchair elite category goes to Switzerland, Manuela Schär, and a $30,000 check accompanies that finishing position. 1 hour 45 on the clock for Schär.
Thumbs up as she crosses the line as well. She's happy with her day's work. Sure, she'll embrace the winner, and we come down for 3rd place. Rosario and Tatiana coming down. Looks like Tatiana's got a bit of a jump.
It was a strong finishing section for de Rosario. A year ago she took the win, but this time she's been found slightly wanting on the closing stages of the London Marathon, and it's going to be another podium finish for Tatiana McFadden. She's been racing really well on the track in the last few weeks and months. McFadden, she's a star for the American Paralympic team, and she's been a star here again at the London Marathon. 3rd place for Tatiana McFadden. Her best recent result at this event was 3rd back in 2021, and she hasn't been quite the force in the marathon majors as she was in the previous years, but that is a return to form for McFadden over the marathon distance. A wonderful 3rd place. That is confirmation of the top 3 finishers in the women's wheelchair race here at the London Marathon. Catherine de Brunner taking the win by over 6 minutes. Manuela Schär in 2nd place, and Tatiana McFadden of the United States backing up the 2 Swiss athletes in 3rd.
A lot's been happening when we've been away in the women's race. As you can see, there's no pacemakers left, which is slightly earlier than what these girls would have liked, and certainly a safer would have liked, I'm sure. With 1:26 on the clock, still a good 40-odd minutes left of running, and they're taking a very strange line as they're realising where on the road is going to be the shortest line. But we've lost Brigitte Kosgei. I mentioned earlier she looked like she was wincing a bit. I don't know whether there's a bit of a reoccurrence of an injury, but we have lost one of the fastest girls in the field. But the others are there, who we expected, and the safer is taking the front. She very much has like a running action that you can see that she has some track in her legs. There's a bit of that front foot, a bit of that lean. There's a bit about her that just says, like, I've got I've got some gears in me, like you would expect someone on the shorter distances. But she's got the front, she's got the group. I wouldn't say she has them by the scruff of the neck. It doesn't look aggressive. I'd need to check the splits. We did get that. I know we're a bit beyond it, but halfway we were 67.04, which is 2:14 pace, which is quick. And we move back to the British, and it looks like a bit of a gap's formed, Hannah.
Oh, that is quite significant there. Mari McLennan, a Scottish athlete, just out of shot to the right-hand side. She is on her marathon debut here. McLennan has competed for Great Britain over cross-country. She's also co-founder of a company called Kaniska Advocacy that works supremely hard for safeguarding in sport in Great Britain. If you've not heard of Casina Advocacy, make sure you look it up on social media. Kaniska do fantastic work, a lot of it voluntary. McLennan has put her career to one side to focus on Kaniska Advocacy and her running, and so far here, with an hour and a half on the clock for the Scottish women, it looks like it could be paying off. Maybe a patient first half for McLennan, and she'll be welcoming the sight of Charlotte Purdue. Charlotte Purdue is a fantastic athlete in her own right, of course, qualified for that British Olympic team already. If you're just joining us and you didn't hear us saying that already, the two pacemakers being featured here in this group are already qualified for the Olympics and selected. But McLennan, this would be a wonderful debut for the Scottish woman if she can just hold her nerve here. She's still got a long way to go, another hour or so, probably out on the roads, but so far, so good.
But one of the brilliant things she's got, and one of the great things, the pacemakers have been able to split. Charlotte has gone with this young lady, and that's really helpful. And to know she's got a girl that could go all the way. She could go all the way. She has got a PB of 2:22 from Berlin last year in Charlotte. She's going to the Olympics, so let's see how not a knock, how generous Charlotte's feeling. How far will she take her? But knowing that she has the ability to take her a long way is obviously going to be comforting. But she's on for a great run here. There's still, what are we looking at? We're looking at about 40-50 minutes or whatever it is on the clock still to go. A lot of running still to go, but she looks good. She's on the side of Charlotte, which is interesting. And let's see if she can give the selectors a headache, because there's still a place up for grabs, and maybe there'll be teammates in come the summer.
That's honestly the last thing the British selectors need, is it? Another woman underneath the qualifying mark.
They've put themselves in that position.
But that is a strong running on a debut for a British athlete, Mari McLennan, as the lead women did go through 17 miles in 1:27.25. They are underneath course record pace, but we'll turn back to the elite men for the moment. Still a big pack here. Tamarit Tola would have seen his training partner Cisse Lemmer take a wonderful win in Boston. It really was dominant, wasn't it, Chris? It was an aggressive second half from Cisse Lemmer. He looked very within himself, very capable of winning that race. And what confidence would it give Tamarit Tola to see his training partner compete so well?
Yeah, just clocking the 4:44 split for the mile. That is one of the quicker miles, so we take that with a pinch of salt, because that is getting towards 61 flat for the half kind of pace, 4:40 being. But yeah, absolutely, you do, when you see your stablemate, your training partner doing well, it's a huge encouragement to know that I've been keeping up with you in training, I've been doing this and that. And like you said earlier in the program, Tola and his coach, it was a very a deliberate ploy to come to London and let Cisse go to Boston. But I go back to when you're looking at these fields, and we're talking a lot about Tola. His run in New York, one of the runners get the back, going for a bit of water. So, but Tola, you know, his run at New York and the championship run was a real standout performance, because it is such a tough event. And so it puts him in the category of someone who's capable of running 2:1:22 in a course like this, if you're trying to draw a comparison. And I'm not sure how many other athletes have that in their wheelhouse. So if he's hot, if he's on it, you could see a bit of a runaway. We don't know. He's looking smooth. He's looking at the front. He's happy to be there. Matejko, someone you can see on the right, the white and orange vest, just sitting there is someone we need to keep our eye on. But the field's big, and that's good. And we're coming up to halfway, and the race will start hotting up. But they have got one pacemaker left, which is something can really change how a race goes once it's down to the rest of the field. And as we see, for a second I panicked. I thought we were going to see a break, but it's just a water station. Stand down, people, stand down. But they just need to make certain they don't fall over each other. and come out of it in one piece.
Successful navigation. Everyone seemed to have a drink. Phew. This is the chase pack. And it is just Emile Cairess now. He did have Tesfaye for company, the Eritrean, for a while. That white vest was shadowing him, but it looks like it's fallen away. Great news for Emile Cairess that at this stage in the race, coming up on an hour, he's still got two pacemakers. Jack Rowe is very competent over half marathon. I think he's gone underneath 61 minutes. So this is around about his limit, Jack Rowe, but he is emptying the tank for an athlete that he would have competed alongside as he was growing up in Great Britain. Emile Cairess is very good over cross country, as is Jack Rowe. But now, I'm sure Rowe was inspired by Emile Cairess last year, and he's getting to help him this year.
Absolutely, and I'm sure Jack Rowe, on that note, might have thought he was here racing himself, but he's, I'm sure we will in the future see him actually do the full distance, but for now he's going to concentrate on the track. We're back to the men, going over the very famous bridge, going through the 20k split. Hannah will give you what that means.
Well, this is what I've been trying to keep an eye on, because we had a long break. I had a 15-kilometre split of 43-41. I thought, is that right? That's faster than Kelvin Kiptum last year. And that backs it up. 58.20 is some 11 seconds faster than Kelvin Kiptum was at this point when he ran his phenomenal race last year. Just 19 seconds off the world record, 2:01.25 last year for the wonderful Kelvin Kiptum, of course, so tragically taken away from us and this sport in February in a tragic car accident. He lost his life. Now, yes, these men are on par with what Kelvin Kiptum was doing at this point last year, but that second half from Kiptum was just out of this world, something I wonder if we'll ever see again. All credit to these men. There's a big pack. They're working together. That's in their favour. But surely they can't dip underneath 60 minutes for the second half. It is still an incredible run from those men at the moment, though.
Yeah, there's a lot to digest in that, because I'm looking, it's aptly going back to Emile Cairess as he goes back past the 20k. This is where those guys at the front going that aggressively is opening doors for Emile and to catch a lot of these guys up, because a lot of them, they may be capable, but whether they're able to execute and maintain that gap. And Emile still looks happy. He's holding on to a drink. That's quite a decent length of time he's holding on to the drink, because he wants the whole lot. It is a big part of marathon running, is getting a lot of drinks in, and not just a little bit. The more you can get on, there's a lot of evidence that says that's a big help. So he's really doing his due diligence. He's holding onto that bottle to make certain he gets as much as he can in. And that front group, that aggressive nature is going to play into his hands. A minute 15, they're showing the gap to the league. That may sound like a lot, but in the second of a marathon, that really isn't. That can change. And as you say, Kiptum's sub 60 last year is just still one of the most incredible things I've ever seen, especially given the conditions that day. So this is hotting up nicely, Hannah.
Well, I'm delighted about here for Emile Cairess. That's not a massive gap, 1 minute 15. He's got two pacemakers with him. But that front group, it will have already splintered. There'll be some athletes peeling off the back of that. And if these pacemakers have to step aside, and Jack Rowe is doing a fantastic job here. He won the big half, actually, one of the other London Marathon events here, so he's very familiar with the streets of London. But when these two inevitably have to step away, I think Emile Cairess, he could be lucky. He could catch a break if he begins to catch some of those athletes in the lead group. And that would be just wonderful. I'm just trying to pick out 53, the second pacemaker here with Emile Cairess. That's perhaps Charles Matata, one of his training partners. He is based up in E10 for much of the year, Emile Cairess.
And it'll be interesting if he gets, we get the half marathon split, just to get, for me, like I say, I like to see the bigger numbers rather than the individual mile splits. But as we'll come back to that shortly, as we see, look at that sight as the people are starting on the race. There's the rhino suit. We all wondered where the rhino suit was going to come into play, but I mean, for me, I'd rather try and run sub 2:10 than do that. I'll be honest, because that's a long way to travel, and I'm sure you'll appreciate the slightly cooler air at the start of this.
Absolutely. There is a record number of starters here at the London Marathon, over 50,000. And if all the tracking is correct, they are on to beat the fundraising record of 66.4 million set back in 2019 for the London Marathon event. And these athletes most of the sponsorship will be in for the athletes running for charity here, and it would be wonderful if they could surpass that 66.4 million and continue to add to the £1 billion that London Marathon has raised for charity over the last 40 years.
A couple of banana suits in there as well. It's and look, they're all addressing their fans as well, which is great to see. I mean, lots of people with their names on their top or clubs to give that little bit of personability as fans are cheering them on. But somewhere in amongst all that, I've got to give a shout out to my mum, Wendy Thompson. They're going past Cutty Sark there, and she is running. I can say this now, but I think she secretly wants to break the 6-hour marathon mark, because she ran 6:15 last year, so hopefully she can do it. And she'll be, I'm sure she'll be I forget her start time, it'll be roughly about now, but it's a sight to behold. And the thing that I love about this event is how the spectators get behind it, and they'll be there all day. London comes to a standstill, and it's all about the running, the raising money for charities, the personal PBs, everything. And look at the crowd, it's just that deep. There's only a couple of dead spots on the course because you can't get to for reasons of access, but generally speaking, everyone giving their wave to the crowd. Hopefully they'll look back and they'll see my voice as they give a wave, and they can say, hey, I was on TV, because the legend Chris Thompson was calling it as I was going. Look at me, give myself a shout. But look at that, what an incredible sight. And for me, London is just one of the most iconic races because of the fact you get to run past such iconic parts of the city.
Well, all the best to Chris's mum. She is just starting her journey, and this group of women has got whittled down incredibly quickly to 4. Safer has been checking her watch time and time again. She looks relaxed. I think there's two things for me if an athlete checks their watch. Either they're in fatigue and they're feeling stressed, or they're kind of thinking, hang on a minute, this feels easier than it should do. What's going on? Am I looking at my watch correctly? Is it Alemu there? Magertu Alemu was looking a bit distressed. It's okay now. Maybe that was just caught her at the wrong moment, but Alemu was looking a bit uncomfortable. But Jet Kosgei, the athlete pushing the pace at the front, and to just have a small group of 4 at this stage is really great. We've still got 7 miles or so to go, but 19 miles in around about 1 hour 40. Great moving for these women. Let's have a look overall. That is just a tiny bit outside of the course record. We'll have to get up to speed with those splits, see if they are still on for the course record at Porter Radcliffe. But the women's only world record is very much on here, 27.01. This pack, if they can keep working together and keep organised, we could see a brand new women's only world record.
Yeah, interestingly, we've actually lost a couple of main protagonists in Ruth Chepngetich and Bridget Kosgei, and Jocelyn Kosgei is a bit of a surprise package at this point, but nevertheless you've still got 4 cream of athletes rising to the top here. And I'd say, yeah, the picture's frozen a little bit. I was going to try and get a picture of their face, and they're going through some quieter patches, but yeah, that's hotting up nicely now. Back to the British athletes.
Oh, this is a nerve-wracking, strong debut here from Mari McLennan. She's coming through 18, 19 miles there or so, and she was patient through the first half, the Scottish woman, but she does look like she's chomping at the bit. But you'll know, Chris, you've run many a marathon in your career, it's too early to start feeling relieved and getting excited, isn't it? Lots of people say, you know, the marathon only starts once you get past 20 miles.
Absolutely, and I think there'll be there's a slight, I'm not familiar with the running action totally, but there's a little bit of a rock of the head side to side, which might be a little bit of a sign, which is normal. You know, you're running a marathon, it's not meant to be easy, but still having the comfort of Charlotte Purdue there will be fantastic for her, just to have that comfort, because as soon as that Charlotte does peel off, it's a very different mental and physical struggle to be completely isolated on the roads, and there's nothing ahead of you, you can't hear anything behind you. But she's having a fantastic run, and she needs to remind herself that right now all that matters is she's paving a new pace for herself, and just to embrace it, because this is going to be a big PB, and even though there is a long way to go, she's got a lot to fight for, which is which is the big thing about marathon running, having something to fight for, and she's well inside her PB pace, and that is a heck of a lot to keep. That is a huge amount to not underestimate how much that is a pulling power. And she's waving to someone in the crowd, which let's hope that's a good sign.
The men's race going well here. Just down to one pacemaker though, 67 minutes on the clock. Well over halfway, nearing the 25-kilometre mark. And they're over on the other side of the river, and they're making their way towards the financial district in London and Canary Wharf and the Isle of Dogs. Sorry, yeah, Canary Wharf and the Isle of Dogs. It is twisty and turny in there, and it can get quiet. A lot of the spectators, you don't get much bang for your buck if you make your way over the financial district. You probably only see the athletes once, whereas in many other parts of the course you can whiz around. 4:35 for the 14th mile there. Going well, moving. When we saw them through around about halfway, they were matching the course record of Kelvin Kipton last year. But what do you reckon, Chris? A group of that size have so many of them in it. Yes, they're probably not going to break 60 minutes for the second half, but could they be on for something underneath 2:03? That would be a wonderful time if we could get a 2:02 clocking here in London this year.
I mean, what makes that more possible is the size of the group and the competitive nature of it. Even if they tail off and the pacer drops off, and it is up to them to hold the pace, they're still far enough along into the race with how far to that time that will help. But at the moment, it's still very much, it's still early days in the sense of there is a pacemaker there, and like I say, pacemaker drops out, it's the whole dynamics of the group and how they work will change. But Tola is a front runner, and he is at the front of this, so when he drops off he might keep the pace honest, and that again gives another hope that we indulgently get to see a very fast race. But there's a lot of runners still there that tell us that you know, someone in there is going to be not feeling great, and there's going to be others that are feeling good. So whoever the guys that are feeling good in that field at that pace, it's a good sign. But it's hey, listen, when there's this many athletes and this competitive, anything can happen. But like a sub, if anyone runs a sub, no, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to do a commentator's curse. I'm going to stop myself. But yeah, it's all looking relaxed. A few strains at the back, but Tola has been at the front of this group, behind the pacer the whole way, and that's a real sign that, for me, that he's still there, that he's ready when he needs to be ready.
They all look relaxed, they all look fine, as does Emile Caresse. We've just seen Mhairi McLennan, the lead British athlete, going very well on the women's side, and Emile Caresse is really clipping off the miles here. 70 minutes on the clock. Great to still have Jack Rowe and the other pacemaker in there with Emile Caresse. So he's well over halfway through the race here. He'll be making his way towards the financial district. And I was hoping we'd start to see athletes falling off that lead men's group. Last time we saw it was what, 1 minute 15 the gap, and they're not slowing down at the front. They're all working hard. We could have to wiggle through the financial district here, come out the other side and around, and then see what's going to happen. Is that group going to splinter? Well,
this is what Emile won't know this right now, obviously, because he can't see what's happening ahead, and it's again great he's got two pacemakers, but with that pack in front, the more the athletes that are struggling hold on and go over that red line for too far into the race, more likely they'll blow up quickly or even stop. So the fact that the group in front is such a big group, and there will be athletes redlining more than they should and not thinking back off, is really going to help Emile. So, but again, he's still looking very relaxed. I know it's 71 minutes on the clock, but for me, this is such a good sign for him to look so smooth at this pace. This is 2:05 pace running. I haven't got the exact split. I need to find what the exact halfway split was, but I think it was pretty much what he wanted, 62:35, 62:40, get that confirmed. But it's great to have the pacemakers. He goes over a bit of a lonely bridge. These sections for me were always a little bit annoying to go under, get a bit of breath of fresh air from the cool air under the tunnel, and then a slight rise. But he's looking good, isn't he?
Emile Caresse looking very smooth, and we haven't had a British man on the podium since Eamon Martin many a year ago. I did write it down. Eamon Martin is the last podium finisher, and it would be just great if we could get Emile Caresse back on the podium. 93, Eamon Martin, maybe it was something like that.
Yes, I believe it was, yes.
Mengesha for the first time. We haven't seen him stick his nose above the water for a while. He's the World Junior Cross-Country Champion back from 2019, and then he did a lot of... he was just getting his bottle, wasn't he? There we go. I always get fooled by the drink stations. I always think, that's it, let's have a look. So there was no drink there for Mengesha. That's problematic for the Ethiopian if he was aiming for a drink and he didn't get it. I was going to say he took some time training alongside the likes of Salomon Barega, model himself as a track runner, and then sort of conceded, all right, that's not quite my strength, and he has turned to the roads. But Mengesha, surely 25k, he would have wanted a drink there.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is that with things like that, we don't see the whole race, so there might have been, he might have carried a gel from the previous bottle and taken that on, or he might feel his strategy is to miss one and then take one. I mean, everyone has their different ways of doing it, and I certainly wouldn't read too much into missing a bottle, or maybe he's sharing with another athlete and they're going to hand one over. It's hard to know, and I can't fully see. But what was interesting for me off that drink station was the pacer took a drink. So he's not any moment thinking about stopping. He's thinking, I want to keep going for these guys. And at an hour 13 on the clock, I'm certainly Tola and everyone in the field will want that pacer there for trying to get to at least 30k. So he's got a bit of a ways to go. And certainly from the British standpoint and the group further back, the longer he stays there, the longer he drags these guys to red line, the more it can suddenly change in the next half an hour, and suddenly we see gaps suddenly forming. So you're looking for the guys at the back, who's straining, who 1 or 2 meters in this kind of a race makes a big difference very suddenly. And if you don't think about maybe peeling off and just giving yourself a respite, then it can really change things quickly.
No, so I think that was Mengesha going for a plain bottle of water. There he goes again. He did get a bottle of water there from a volunteer at the side, a bog standard bottle of water. So I know what you're saying, Chris, don't read too much into it, but I think Mengesha did miss his drink at 25k, and we've already mentioned the landscape of marathoning it's changed in so many ways in the last decade, and fueling is one of those things. Traditionally used to be, can you burn your fat reserves? It was all about that sort of element, and that sort of energy that you were relying on. Was nowadays, with the sophisticated sports drinks, these athletes aim to be fueled throughout the whole race. There's no sort of performing off your reserves. You're very much trying to take on as much carbohydrate as you can. And that is the first athlete Emile Caresse is going to catch. There is someone on the road ahead of him there. Just a note on the split for the main group, 72.51 through 25 kilometres, still slightly 2 seconds faster than Kelvin Kiptum. But at this point last year, Kiptum, world record holder from Chicago last year, really got flying. But Emile Caresse still clutching that drink, and that is Adisu Gobena, the athlete he's going to catch first.
That's a shame for me. Gobena was someone I was looking at as a 19-year-old lad, and when I say shame, they are hot at the front, so don't get me wrong. I mean, Emile's running quick, and so it's not a complete disaster, but hopefully for him, he can keep the pace, finish it off, and he's still very much young and learning the event. But this is, again, Emile, he's holding on to the bottle, making certain he gets the whole thing. He's still thinking clearly. He's still doing his due diligence, which is good to see. He's still got his 2 pacemakers. And the further he can go and keep ticking those boxes to set up that last 10K, which is the point in which everything goes out the window. You're just finding a way to get to the end, turn the legs over, and just grind it out. And the further he can get, as my great coach and the most decorated distance coach in the UK, Alan Story, used to say to me, you've got to get bored before you get tired. And I hope Emile right now is bored.
Now, these athletes at the front of the race, I don't think they will be bored now. I think it's a really wonderful insight, Chris. You're a 2-time Olympian, many a marathon, but at this point 1:50 on the clock, and these women are on for around about 2:15 or so. They've got 20 minutes left, 25 minutes left of racing. They won't be bored now. That adrenaline will be starting to rise. They'll be starting to think through scenarios. I mean, Alemu, for me, perhaps the athlete outperforming her ranking here, as you see, with just 7.4 kilometres left to go. There's big names around her, Jep Koskai, Asefa and Jep Chirchir. I mean, Alemu, she's the one that looks most fatigued to me, most stressed, because she kind of just be willing these kilometres away so that she could stay with these other 3 athletes. There's only 3 spots on the podium and 4 athletes spread across the track at the moment. And the side story to this as well is many of these athletes are trying to get themselves selected for Paris. They're trying to prove form to the selectors. Of course, you'd think Assefa as the world record holder for Ethiopia, she's fine. She should be on the plane and towards that thing. But Perez Jepchirchir as defending champion for Kenya as well. Her hope should be strong for Paris.
Yeah, the Scottish athlete is now on her own, and she's lost Charlotte. Nothing personal, obviously. She's done a sterling job and on her way to Paris, and she can go away and concentrate. We can look forward to that. I need to get a split to see how well she's hanging on, but this is a run of her lifetime up to now, and I'm sure we're going to see more and more of her, and I'm just rooting for her to see this off. We've got in the region of just over 30 minutes left, and she's getting a good cheer from the audience. It's a bit of a lonely run in, but listen, she won't care. She'll be making certain that she just keeps turning those legs over and gets onto the straight bit, giving her arm a little bit of a shake there, a bit of a bike for a bit of company. Not that they've stuck around for too long there, but she's having a cracking run. She's clearly been away training hard. She's clearly come here and set off with a purpose. She set off with that Olympic standard chasing time. As far as I'm aware, she's still going at that pace, unless I stand corrected, because this is the point where we get splits every 5K, so it's a bit of a jump and a lot can happen, but hopefully she's still on that pace, and she's going to get an Olympic standard and a headache to offer the selectors.
Still 3 strong athletes here at the front of the elite women's field. Jocelyn Jepkosgei having a really good run. She won this event back in 2021, 2:17.43. She was then second in 2:18 behind Yalamzurf Yahalu, another big name that has fallen off this group. Assefa, I feel like she's controlling this group. She keeps drifting to the front, but she doesn't seem bothered about really pushing the pace. It does seem to be Jepkosgei, a Kenyan athlete, who's just getting herself sort of, I don't know, for me, she's the one really pushing this pace and the one responsible for taking these 4 away from the rest of the field.
So I was watching on when we on one of the other cameras while we had a different camera on the lead. You know what I mean. And Assefa was eyeballing the other athletes. She was really assessing. So at this moment, what athletes will start to do is start to listen to what the other athletes are doing breathing-wise, how heavy their footsteps are. Just get a feel for where their energy levels at. Because right now, these athletes, the part of the nervousness is how everyone's feeling. You're trying to control yourself. You're trying to control your own feeling. You have a good idea of how much energy you've got left between now and the finish. You can do those kind of self-calculations, but you're trying to do calculations on how the other athletes are feeling. And they'll also be weighing up about, do I feel comfortable in a sprint? And you'd assume Assefa would feel comfortable in a sprint, but again, this is a marathon. And I feel like I would assume she feels the most comfortable, but again, she's still going to have that nervousness of, look, there's 4 of us, and I want to win this. And and that's going to play into a factor of, does she make a move, does she not? But right now, they're trying to figure each other out, and I think Assefa is the one that's doing the most kind of assessing and looking and trying to figure out where she stands and whether she needs to make a move or whether she can wait.
Back to the lead men, big pack. We did have this in the women's stage at this point in the race. Walde is tucked in there. Dawit Walde having a nice quiet race. He was 3rd in Valencia behind Munyao, but ahead of Kenenisa Bekele, who is still tucked in there. I was very much hoping Kenenisa Bekele would stand the test of time. He hasn't finished all of his major marathons over the last few years, but I do think that VET 40 world record, 2:04.19 in Valencia, it was 4th place in December. That to me was a big move in the right direction for Kenenisa Bekele, and everyone's saying, can he possibly make his 4th Olympic Games? And you were saying, Chris, he reckons he's got even more in the tank than that.
Yeah, he was. I mean, that was a 4:41 miles. So that mile split is still towards the 61 flat halves, a 2:02 sort of pace. So it's quick, but yeah, he spoke very candidly that he's feeling like I mean, he insinuated a couple of things about other athletes' ages, which we won't go into, but he very much talked about how he doesn't just have one Olympics, he has 2. And he talked about he still can run 2:01. He said not this weekend, but he might have to rethink that, the pace these guys are going at. But he is a world-class athlete. He's been around a long time, and actually a lot of his performances over recent years, according to his agent, has been a lot to do with just other commitments and actually dedicating time to train and get prepared. Because listen, this sport is brutal now. You've got to be on the top of your game. You've got to take it seriously. And if you're not giving it 100% in training, as I say this, we're losing the pacemaker right now. That's going to change things greatly. And we're going to start to see the race really starting to hot up. As we check back to see Emile with down to 1 pacer.
Emile Carresse blew past Adissu Gobena like Gobena was standing still. Gobena is a 2:05:01 marathoner. He won Dubai earlier on this year in that debut, but he is behind this man on his 2nd career marathon. It was a sensational debut for Emile Carresse last time round in London. Dipped underneath the Olympic qualifying time in his very first try. And here he is on his 2nd marathon. It was a wonderful 60:01 for a half in Italy a few weeks ago. That sort of gave us the confidence that he was on for a great run. And he's got Matata, his training partner, for company. And the news from further down the course is that Mark Scott and Mohammed Mohammed are very much still on the Olympic qualifying mark. So Phil Sessamon of Great Britain has already been picked, and the selectors want to choose another 2. At this point for Emile Carresse, if he finishes the race, surely he'll be ahead of Mark Scott on his debut and Mohammed Mohammed on his 2nd marathon of his career, and that will be the 2nd Olympic spot for the British team. But those 2 behind Scott and Mohammed could be fighting it out for the final British marathon spot.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the beautiful headache that athletes want to give selectors. They want to put their name on that discussion pad, and they want to make them have to find a reason not to pick me. And I think hopefully we'll be able to get a camera back on them at some point towards the latter stages, because this is Olympic year. This is big for all athletes. There are Kenyan teams still to be picked, Ethiopian teams still to pick, and the British team has still got, like you say, 2 men's spaces and a female space up for grabs, and hopefully they fill them all. And hopefully we just need one more athlete, in the men's race, because Emile, like we said, has the standard from last year in London. Fantastic run in London last year, and I can speak through having run that race. That was tough conditions. It was a 2:08 low run, but it was worth a heck of a lot more, especially in the second half. And so we've got an athlete here who this is not him messing around. This is not a pace that is silly for Emile to be going at, and he's still looking very, very comfortable. And it's great that we're getting to see this, because this is if he does decide to squeeze and he is feeling comfortable enough, we need to check to see if the British record from Mo is under threat. So we will have to keep an eye on that. And again, we're talking about podiums, we're talking about there's a lot that's going to happen over the next 30-40 minutes, and the Brits behind that have got a lot to play for too.
We are under 5k to go in the elite women's side, just over 2 hours, and there are 4 women really pushing the pace here. Peres Jepchirchir, the reigning Olympic champion, is having a very quiet race there for me. I think when we looked at David Weir not going to the front at all in the men's wheelchair race, I don't think Jepchirchir is bothering to really get involved in pushing the pace. He's leaving that to Jep Kosgei and a safer. The last mile, 5:23 through 23 miles for these women. Is that fast enough? I don't think they're going to hit Paula Radcliffe's course record. They're a little bit off that, perhaps. We're going to have to maybe wait until we've got the 40-kilometre split. That will be coming up, or maybe 24 miles. They are moving really well. I do think they are going to be on for a new women's-only world record. But who is going to be the owner of that? A safer, the outright world record, 2:11:54. Could she add the women's-only world record to her CV?
And the really interesting thing is, this is a safer in unfamiliar territory. She's used to having crowds of athletes around her, men in a mixed race. And because it is a women's only and not a mixed race, you've got to think a lot more about race strategy and beating the person next to you. And that is a completely different set of thought processes that you're going to have to deal with. Right now in Berlin, she didn't have to worry about winning the race. She had to just worry about sticking with the guy next to her. And so this is going to be a new territory for her. Yes, she is the fastest athlete by 2 minutes, not just in this field, in the world ever. But she's got world-class athletes around her, and so we're focusing a lot on her. But I think there's a heck of a lot now. She's going to want to try and prove to herself she can win in this fashion as well. And that's a lot for an athlete, to be able to feel like they can stand on a start line and they can win in any scenario, whether it's a mixed race, whether it's a women's only, whether it's fast, slow. And this is going to be big for her to put on a CV to feel comfortable going forward.
Mari McLennan on her debut for Scotland is still the lead British athlete here in this field. She does look laboured, she does look tired, but I don't think she looks any different than she looked 20 or 30 minutes ago. This woman has been a British athlete on the cross country. She's been a phenomenal performer on the roads, but this is very much the run of her life for Mari McLennan. She's on for around about 2:29, I think, maybe 2:28 or so. She's going to be agonisingly close to that British Olympic qualifying standard. And it sits at 2 hours 26:50. I think it would take a heroic effort for McLennan over the next 20 minutes or so if she was going to get close to that. And she's having a lonely run out there. Charlie Purdue helped her out for a long time, but McLennan is having to keep an eye herself on her watch. And hopefully she's looking at that and going, wow, did I really just manage another mile that fast at this stage in a marathon? Hats off to McLennan. Let's hope she can keep pushing and keep moving well.
We're back to the men's, and the familiar sight of Kenenisa hitting the front. I mean, this looks like it's frozen now, but it looks like the front has been blown apart. And we've gone through a drink station. Apologies, I need to wait for the pictures to reset before I can fully see what's happened. But from the frozen pictures, we have Bekele and I can see Tola. We've had to head back to the room. We'll find out more about what's going on there in a second.
That I know drink stations can blow fields apart, but that
was
very, very
yeah,
spread out there.
That was big
on the men's side. And very similar here on the women's side, though, to last time we saw them. Still, Jepkoskai, Asefa, Alemu, and Chepchirchir. Got the world record holder versus the Olympic champion, and the two other women for company. That elite women's race certainly living up to the billing. Thought it was going to be a great one, and it certainly is. We're just going to try and have a look at the significance of that drink station and the athletes spreading out in the men's race. Kenenisa Bekele pushing at the front with an hour and a half on the clock. Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, that's big. And again, is that 31k in the background? That is when we've lost the pacemaker, and this is where the race is starting. And as we've been talking about and preparing ourselves for, this is a 4:32 mile. There you go. We obviously didn't see who it was. You'd assume it's Bekele because he's at the front of who caused that. But that is a big jump in pace, and it's blown everyone. And those guys behind, if they've been redlining, trying to stay with that group for too long, that could be a bit of running feed for Emil to the British guy to catch up with. But focusing on the front, we're down to 5 athletes, it looks like, and I got to say, I'm so impressed with Kenenisa right now. Maybe he's been more quietly confident than he's been letting on, and he's been training a lot more than he's been saying. He's famously once, many years ago, I remember him talking about eating far too many Big Macs when he would come across to race in countries like the UK. So hopefully he stayed away from the Big Macs, and maybe he's actually been eating the pasta dishes, and this is a sign that he's here to mean business. And I tell you, this is a significant cadence he's putting together. This is serious, and he looks like he's not going to mess around.
So we saw Mengesha, the man in the green vest. I think we're going to leave the men's race there for a minute, let them get to a different section where perhaps the cameras are picking up their signals a bit better. It's tough as you go through those sections and under the tunnels and whatnot. We often have issues with our cameras at this stage in the London Marathon, but look at these guys, loving every second of it. Bit of sunlight for them down in London. At the start of the programme with the wheelchair races, it was around about 7 or 8 degrees Celsius. It's going to be dry all day and just creep up every hour or so. You were going to get another degree. 11:30 here UK time, and this is really, really good conditions for these athletes. It is sunny. It's not as hot as it looks there. You don't want it too warm, especially if you're going to come dressed as a rabbit. I wonder if he's mates with the rhino. They've lost each other, and there should be a Noah's Ark-esque fancy dress wheelchair competition going on.
Where's the tortoise and the hare? Somewhere in there. That was a dad joke, wasn't it?
It was. Okay, we've got the camera work back, and I was going to pick out Melkesa Mengesha, the Ethiopian athlete here, the youngster. He was 6th at the World Championships in Budapest, which, when you're up against the likes of Tola, who won in 2022 in Eugene, doesn't look that impressive. But Mengesha only got the call up about a week before Budapest. It was a frantic kind of turnaround for him to pull on the Ethiopian vest and compete there. So that 6th is actually a lot more impressive for me than it looks on paper for Mengesha, and he ran a very fast 60:45 in Houston in January, but we know the Houston course is ridiculous. The times it throws up there often don't get repeated elsewhere. But Mengesha, I'm nervous about the drink he missed at 25 kilometres. I know I might be putting too much credence on that, but it's almost like a ticking time bomb. When an athlete misses a drink, you don't really spot it for another 5-10 kilometres further down the road. But Mengesha, he's looking quite comfortable there for me.
No, you're right. I was just meaning in terms of, it might have been part of his strategy, but you're right, because part of having a drink as we hit 10k to go, we really are at the crunch stage here. Part of having a drink is just having it swirl around in your mouth, and you get a lot of feedback from just a drink entering your mouth and hitting your palate to give your brain the information of, hey, I've got fuel. Because again, your body's fighting against that survival instinct of, I'm running out of fuel, and that fight or flight feeling. And so even if an athlete doesn't want to take it on, it's still a good idea to swirl it around and spit it out. So you're absolutely spot on. He should have, if I was his coach, I'd say, look, even if you don't feel like you want it, still take it on, swirl it round. Oh, Mohamed, here we go.
This is a wonderful run from Mohamed. He debuted in December in Valencia. Him and Phil Sessamon were agonisingly close to the Olympic standard. I think it was around about 2:08:40 for Mohamed. So this is his 2nd marathon. The man from Southampton, he's coached by Idris Hamoud. He was better known domestically as a cross-country runner. He's so ferocious on the mud when you unleash him. He loves to front run, and his conversion over to the marathon has been great. And Mohamed at the moment, we think he could be the 2nd Brit behind Emile Caresse and honing in perhaps on an Olympic qualifying time.
He looked good, didn't he? He looked very good. And he's on his own with no one help, so that's something to be mindful of. We go back to the lead group, and these guys look like they're settling down into a workman-like fashion. No one's... Kenenisa, yes, he's at the front, but don't be fooled. That's not I'm at the front to get rid of you. That's very much just keep things honest, and I feel more comfortable sat here, because again, not everyone feels comfortable sat at the back, not everyone feels comfortable at the front. Everyone right now is going to be putting themselves where they feel most comfortable, and when someone decides to make a move, they will put themselves in a position at the front to really pick the pace up. But I'm looking at that vest, I'm wondering, I feel like there's a bit of a breeze going on at them actually. It's hard to fully read because you do go in and out of buildings, and so we can't feel exactly what they feel. But that's such an iconic view, isn't it?
And we are getting very close to the closing stages on the elite women's race. They're going to take a right-hand turn there in front of Big Ben. Now, Chris, you've run London Marathon a number of times. This, along the embankment here, along the river, when you see Big Ben, is that nice? You feel like you'd...
Never seen it.
Sorry, mate.
I've never seen... What I mean by that is I'm too tired.
Oh!
That's what I mean. I'm just too tired. I'm just pining. I'm looking for the corner. So right now, as these girls come up, it's a slight incline and then a sharp turn to the right. And all I was focused on is that turn. And then that small breather you get downhill towards the mouth. So yeah, that's what I mean by that. So these girls, again, if they haven't run this race before, it can be a bit of a shock to the system. And now the turn, so they've got through that section. That little rise up can be a little bit of a nuisance. Now you're about 2k from the finish here. 1.4. The TV's corrected me. Hey, that's embarrassing. Thanks.
Less than a mile. That is nothing for these women. They would have run so many miles in training, so many kilometers. This will be absolutely nothing. They will just start running. And Jep Kosgei has been at the front of much of this race, and she's still pushing the pace. A Safer has that 800-meter speed. It's such a wonderful stat to be a sub 2-minute runner and all the way to a world record over the marathon. And a Safer, this is a point where you wonder whether pure speed wins out over a strength speed. For me, a Safer has got the full package. You can't look past her, even though there's 4 of them, even though she hasn't necessarily asked questions of anybody else. But this pack are very much on to shatter Mary Keitany's women's only world record. That stands at 2:17.01. They've been moving really well. They're on for 2:16 something, 2:16 what? We're not quite sure. We will have to wait till the end of Birdcage Walk to find out. But they're starting to look at each other. For me, at this point, Chris, it's kind of who can be patient. Someone out of these 4 is going to kick too early. They're going to kind of show their cards and waste their energy. And I think it'll be someone else that sweeps through and picks up the pieces.
Absolutely. The one thing you don't want to do at this point is make a move, and it's not decisive. Because if you make a move, you want it to see it through. And so right now, they're just all starting to line up. Is that a little bit of a move from Alamu? She's definitely testing the waters here, and they've all reacted, which that will tell her that right there, just that would have created a bit of nerve inside her, because that would have been a little bit of a, if she'd have sensed they'd have sat back, she'd have gone. And like you say, the women's only world record is done dusted. They won't be thinking about that. We should see that now. Now it's all about the win. And Alamu sat him back. This is cagey now. The 4 of them in a line. They really are now all very nervous about fully committing, because if they do and it doesn't work, you haven't got far to get that going again. We're literally entering the last 2.5 minutes here.
Well, I think they will be passing through 800 metres to go very soon. And a Safer, the former 800-metre Olympian, I'm sure that will be a welcome sight for her. What won't be a welcome sight is 3 athletes alongside her. They are so close. They're going to take 2 pretty sharp right-hand turns here. And I think somebody might lose patience and try and get themselves a better line. Jepchirchir muscles her way through on the inside. She's going to get pinched as they turn into that corner if she's not comfortable. Alamu, I think she gave her move at the start of Birdcage Walk. I can't see Alamu coming back from that. She's gasping. She's starting to flounder. Jepchirchir, the Olympic champion, looks over. A Safer gives nothing away. Jep Kosgei, she's grimacing ever so slightly. Jepchirchir is almost saying, come on then, someone kick, and let me match it. Jep Kosgei drifts back. A Safer clashes with Jepchirchir. A Safer forces her way onto the inside, and that ignites Jepchirchir. Is it going to be a win for the Olympic champion? What a turn of pace. 385 yards to go. Buckingham Palace on her left-hand side, but she's got to get moving. She's got to get round that last corner. Jepchirchir has stolen a march on Jep Kosgei, and the world record holder, a Safer, is down into 3rd place. A Safer looks over her shoulder. This is going to be an upset here. Everybody was hanging the win on Tigist a Safer, the world record holder, 2:11 in Berlin last September, but she can't match the closing speed here of the reigning Olympic champion. Perez Jepchirchir has stuck in that pack. She's bided her time. She hasn't got involved in any of the leading. This is going to be a wonderful run for Jepchirchir. It was a win in Tokyo, a win in New York in 2021. She won the Boston Marathon in 2022. She was 3rd here last year, Jepchirchir, and an Olympic year. Rounding up to 100 days to go to her title defence. It is going to be a wonderful win and a women's only world record for Perez Jepchirchir, and you can hear her cheer herself across the line. A Safer rallies in the closing stages to get 2nd place, and a wonderful 3rd for Jep Kosgei. All 3 underneath Mary Keitany's mark of 17:01, the previous women's only record, as is a very tired Magatu Alamu. But Perez Jepchirchir, we know she's a championship performer. You don't win the Olympics by accident. And that was a wonderfully well-judged run from Chepchirchir, and she needs that to confirm her spot on the Olympic team as well. Helena Beery, the Boston Marathon winner last week, three-time world marathon major winner in her last 3 attempts. She kind of put her name on that Kenyan team, but they would have been looking at this race as well, and this is what they would have hoped to see, the defending champion winning an Olympic year in the London Marathon.
Absolutely incredible. That meant a lot to her. She can see, look at the roar on her face as she crosses the line. She is a winner. She has won so many majors, and she knows how to win the big races. And in the heat of the battle in the final stages, she showed her experience, her fitness, her strength. She did everything to win that race, and she's women are rewarded with a women's only world record, another a London Marathon win, beating some of the best athletes, current best athletes in the world, with only Sifan not being here today, and that meant a lot. And she's going to be one to watch this summer at the Paris Olympics. But she has won some of the toughest races, and I feel that showed today. She knows how to win in tough situations. She's a tough cookie, and well done to her, because that was she just probably won one of the most well put together female fields in history. Incredible, well done to, and she's got the towel, fantastic.
There are the top 3 from that wonderful women's race that lived up to all of my expectations. Peres Chepchirchir cut the tape, 2:16.16, a brand new women's only world record holder outright, to Gest Asefa having to settle for second. And Jocelyn Jepkosgei rounding out 2 Kenyans on the podium in third. Oh, Kenenisa Bekele has been responsible for pushing and pushing and pushing at the front of this race. He was looking around, he was asking other men to help him. No one really seemed bothered, and suddenly that group has been whittled down to just 2 athletes. Alexander Munyeo is the athlete alongside Bekele. Munyeo was a brilliant second in Valencia in 2023 behind that world record. No, apologies, wrong race. But Munyeo beat Bekele in Valencia last time round. That was the last result between these two. But Bekele, he's got so much marathon experience, and that's why I look for, Chris. We've got young up-and-coming athletes improving every race, chipping away against someone like Bekele that has just got experience for years and years. What happens? Yeah,
but let's not forget here, there's a big elephant in the room here, in the fact that Bekele has never won London Marathon. For all his accolades, he's never won, and Bekele needs motivation, and this is clearly, he's come here with a purpose. And we'll come back to that bit. Emil, again, looking good. He's always got a bottle in his hand. I love it. He's like a man on a night out. He's always got his hand with a drink in his hand, and I absolutely love this. An hour and 44 in the clock. I mean, again, look at the face. It's relaxed. He's smooth. He's taking his time to sip in between breaths. He's not rushing it. He's not rushing to get rid of the drink. This is a man who's in control and happy and content. And maybe he feels like he could run a lot quicker than he set off today at, and that's why it's all part of his preparation. But this is what's fantastic about this guy. Everything feels and seems like it's done with a purpose. He's not just winging it. He's really trying to take himself and the sport seriously, and this distance seriously. And he's still holding that bottle. Fantastic. He's got a clear road ahead of him, but everyone has been a lot of breaking up of the lead group. I don't know exactly where he's sitting at the moment. I haven't seen through 35k split. I haven't seen I haven't seen that, but it'll be interesting to see where he's sitting in the pecking order, because athletes are going to be coming back, and he's going to start seeing some coming. Even though you can't in the distance, it starts happening very quickly.
22 miles complete for Emil Karas as the lead Brit, and Mohamed is not too far behind. I think Karas is around about 2:06 pace, which would put him number 2 on the all-time list for Britain. And Mohamed, if the splits on the tracking app are correct, is on for 2:07.20. He's around, that's behind the leaders, 3 minutes and 20 seconds. But Mohamed is just clipping off these miles so well. He's been training in Ilfrane in Morocco. He's been observing Ramadan, and Ilfrane, they put floodlights up. They provide training facilities out of hours in the dark. It's also at altitude, which is brilliant. But Mohamed chose to go and train in Ilfrane because that was probably the only place in the world he could really get high quality in during observing Ramadan, and that has been brilliant for Mohamed. Mohamed, he likes training there. He doesn't have many training partners, Mohamed. His key training partner would be his brother, Zach Mohamed, who's a wonderful cross-country runner as well. Would just be waiting for Zach to make his move to the roads as well. But Mohamed running himself potentially onto the British Olympic team.
And we're back to the front, and Meunier looks like he's again, this is just at this point the guys are just going to be testing each other. There's nothing that's going to be an overcommitment. There's certainly neither athlete's going to want to try and overplay their card and overexpose what they're feeling to the other athlete. They're going to keep their cards close to their chest, and they're going to almost jab and just test the water. Just how you feeling. They're just trying to get information out of each other. Just a mini jab here and there. If I put a little bit of an increase, do you respond? How quickly do you respond? Is it a sudden, you just kind of labely catch me up, or it's not even a word, but you get what I mean? Or is it an instant back on me? And again, the way they're moving around the roads and how they're manoeuvring with each other, it's all going to be mind games at this point, and we're looking at around about 15 minutes left. I need to get the splits on what kind of pace they're sitting on. I'm sure Hannah will nicely hand them over, but at the moment, passing one of the female athletes in the background, I believe that's the lady that's had a massive improvement over the last few years.
Aislinn Culling has had a phenomenal improvement. She looks like she's enjoying herself out there, getting applause from the crowd. I'm sure she'll enjoy the sight of Kenenisa Bekele in the flesh. Through 23 miles for these men. They're on around about 2:03 pace. And they went through halfway at about that pace as well, so they've maintained. But I think these two, they've done enough to drop the rest of the athletes, and they will now start to race. And Bekele, for me, he was sort of the guy who trademarked last 400 metres on the track. That was kind of his thing. Olympic debut in Athens, and he won the 10,000 metres. The Ethiopians were always very good at closing fast, as were the Kenyans, but Bekele for me was the guy that started dropping, disgusting last 400 metres, and hopefully he can draw on that. And 4:50 for that mile, it's not sensationally fast. It's really, they run faster than I could run, and they've done 23 miles already. But I feel like they're just taking stock here. What's he doing there, Bekele?
I don't know, but usually wherever Bekele is, Jos, his agent, is not far away from him, so it might have been a sign to him to let him know I need my drink. There is still another drink station, so it could have been a sign, get it ready, make certain it's there. It could be anything, but it certainly looked like a signal to one of his entourage anyway. But yes, you're absolutely right. He's got great track pedigree, he's quick, but this is the marathon. We just saw a Safer, who's a sub-2 minute 800 metre runner, get out sprinted. So there is certainly no necessarily correlation to who's fast. It's usually about who's the least tired, who can hold themselves together the best in the last 100 metres, 200 metres of a race. And these guys are going clip for clip, and these are two world-class athletes. Meunier is a world-class athlete, he's in good form, and neither have won London. That's the thing I go back to. Bekele, at his age and what he's done everything. How do you motivate yourself? Well, Kenenisa, you haven't won London. Let's see it. You've got there's two of you. You've only got about 12 minutes left. This is something big to add to your CV. It comes with a lot of prestige. London Marathon has had who's who of talented athletes, male, female, wheelchairs across the world that have come here, competed, and not every one of them has won it. So he wants to add his name to that list, and this is going to be a big last 5K, and at the moment I can't tear them apart.
So Emile Cairess is in around about 8th place, we think. Last time we checked out, he was on 2:06 pace. And this would be just a wonderful, wonderful run for Emile Cairess on his second marathon. And he could put himself number 2 on the all-time British list, behind the one and only Sir Mo Farah. There was talk, perhaps, of attacking that British record. Doesn't look like it's quite happened today, but it's still a very, very good run from Emile Cairess as he looks to secure his spot on the Olympic team for Great Britain. And this is very much part of his preparations to try and perform well in Paris. And when you look at Paris, it's very hilly. Emile Cairess, wonderful cross-country runner, took a very good silver behind Jakob Ingebrigtsen at the European Cross a few years ago on the hilliest cross-country course I've ever seen in my life. And I think that could be exciting for Emile Cairess.
Exactly, and I think the thing about it is, with him, is he's got a lot of skills to bring to the table, so it could be a very interesting Paris Olympics, and this is all part of that process.
Mari McLennan, on her debut over the marathon distance, is going to be the first British woman across the line. at the London Marathon, and that is a special moment for any athlete. She's tired. She's very, very tired here. Mari McLennan has judged this really well. You can tell the fatigue here. The knee lift has gone, the arms are flapping more, the chin's back, she's gasping for air, but she isn't falling apart. It would be wonderful if McLennan could hold on for a sub 2:30 clocking here. And I think she gave herself every shot at getting on terms with that Olympic qualifying time of 2:26.10. She was running with Alice Wright for much of the race, and then she set Charlotte Purdue and Callie Thackeray split their pacemaking duties, one going with each athlete, and Purdue helped Mari McLennan through till around about an hour and a half, an hour and 40 or so, and then McLennan has had a long, lonely 50 minutes, although not that lonely. She's had all the locals in London cheering her on. I don't know if they'll be aware that she's the first British athlete. There will be some geeks out there, some statos that would have been street side and would have known the significance of McLennan passing them first before the likes of Alice Wright and co, who are further down the road. McLennan in a whole world of pain here, but 2 corners left to go.
Absolutely. I mean, she's in a lot of pain, but she'll be proud of herself. At the end of the day, it's Olympic year, so I'm sure I'd have to see the splits, but if she has slowed a little bit, that's what Olympic year does. You put everything on the line and you go try and go maybe slightly above of what you might think you can achieve. And I don't think for a second this was above a station on another course, another day, on a faster course maybe. But fair play to her, and this, I'm sure, is not going to be the last time we see her. I'm sure this is the beginning of seeing some incredible stuff from her.
It is going to be almost a dream debut for Mari McLennan. Being first Brit would have been perhaps beyond her expectations, but Mari McLennan has put together just a wonderful 26 miles here, and that's the first time we've seen a suggestion of a smile for McLennan. I hope she knows that she's the first British finisher here. I'm sure Jeff Whiteman is on the tannoy down there in central London, letting her know if she doesn't know already. This woman founded a company called Kaniska Advocacy that looks after safeguarding women in our sport. She has had a torrid time in her own career, with many upheavals and disappointments and injuries and heartbreak. But today, Mari McLennan gets a fairy tale story. She is the British winner at the London Marathon. She's staring at the clock. It's going to be the right side of 2.5 hours. This woman has backed herself. She's compromised her career for her training and for her volunteer work in safeguarding. And she deserves this position as the first British finisher in the London Marathon so much. Congratulations, Mari McLennan. What a debut.
Absolutely fantastic. I mean, I tell you that the feeling she'll be feeling right now, she should feel great pride and be very, she's joined a very exclusive club of British winners at this event, and she's done it running quickly, she's done it running bravely, and to be honest with you, I think, like I say, the towel says it all. I keep harping on about it, but it is a nice feeling at the end of the race. But I'm so pleased for her, and like I say, I hope and I'm sure this is only the beginning of what she's going to go on to achieve. And that's a big jump in personal best, yes, but honestly, when you do things like that, I'm sure she'll go away and look at how she prepared for this and use that as a tool to go away and add to that. And you never know, in 4 years' time, we could be seeing her on the Olympic team.
The masses approach halfway there on Tower Bridge. Got a lot of energy, a lot of smiles, a lot of waves. Let's see if they're waving like that in another 10 miles or so. If you haven't heard me say it already, it was a record number of starters here at the 44th edition of the London Marathon, over 50,000, and they're on course to beat the record for the most amount of money raised for charity as well. That sounds at £66 million back from 2019. And in the current economic climate across the world, for these guys to be raising more money than ever for charity is just fantastic. So hats off to all the athletes and the camels and the athletes, that the public that are sponsoring them. Decisive move in the men's elite race. Monyeyo of Kenya has broken away from Kenenisa Bekele. Alexander Monyeyo is an accomplished athlete, 2:03.11, his best time in 2023. He was second in Valencia in that wonderfully quick marathon there. Got the better of Bekele on that day, and Monyeyo looks like he could be getting the better of Bekele here. Chris Thompson, you've run many more marathons than I am. I've seen you at this point in the race, looking tired, looking good. But Monyeyo, 2.3 kilometres left to go. How do you feel at this point in a marathon? Is relief, a weight off your shoulders?
I've not been in his position of leading London Marathon, that's for certain. Oh, what's he do? He's realising the shorter route. He's going for his bottom.
That was Stéphane Hassan-esque,
yeah, it was a little bit. Yeah, listen, at this point of the race, when you're having a good day and he has a gap, that gap is going to make his fatigue feel a lot less damaging to the body, and it's going to feel a lot better. Kenenisa will feel a lot worse about it because of that gap. So again, listen, this little bit up to Big Ben was also always a bit of a nuisance for me, just to get to the top of it and then get a bit of a respite, and then Berge Cahir always felt long. But it looks decisive, this lead. It does look decisive, and it's not been a dramatic pickup in pace. From the splits I saw, it was around about the 450 low. So it's more just a slowing down of effort from these guys rather than an aggressive pickup. So what we didn't see was whether there was an injection just for the short term, passing 25 miles. So we really are coming to the, we are just over a mile left with the extra little 0.2. But it's, again, this has been a bit of a battle of attrition for the men. They've gone out hard, and this has been a bit of a strong man's performance from Monyeyo. But Bekele is having a storming run, a lot better than I anticipated. I have to put my hand up. But Monyeyo just needs to stay calm, keep turning his legs over, make certain that drink doesn't give him a stitch or anything, and he just keeps turning over, because that is a winning gap. When I say winning, he hasn't won the race. It's a good enough gap that if he holds himself together, he doesn't need to pick up, he just needs to hold himself together, and it will win his first London Marathon.
Becky Briggs making her way over the finish line. It's another woman that's been through the ringer somewhat in our sport. She's been very open about eating disorders and having to manage that, and to manage that alongside moving to the roads and moving to marathon running has been incredibly impressive. And Becky Briggs, we do think she could be the second British finisher here on the roads in London. Mari McLennan on her debut has already made her way to the finish. Briggs, she is coming through as the second finisher here for Britain. There's been a few casualties down there on the line. Alice Wright would have been, I'm sure, going for the Olympic qualifying time. Perhaps if that was slipping away from her, Alice Wright might turn her attention to the track. She's very capable of making the Olympic Games over 10,000 metres as well. But Becky Briggs breaks a smile. She's been directed over to the left-hand side of the course there, having to run ever so slightly further. 2 hours 34 on the clock. It's going to be outside her lifetime best.
Do you know what? It's great to see Becky back doing this. She's, as you say, she's been through the ringer. She is a 2022 European Marathon representative for Britain after a superb qualifying in Manchester Marathon in 2:29. And this is not a million miles away. Like, listen, when it comes to marathon, 5 minutes might seem a lot, but for someone of her calibre, this is a great step forward to get herself back to those kind of standards. And she's got, for me, that's a half smile, half kind of frown of fatigue, but I think she knows in herself. She is smiling. Yeah, there you go. She is smiling because she knows this is a big step forward to get back to where she belongs, and it's great to see. Fantastic for her, fantastic for a team of people that have helped her to get to this point. She's even putting a little bit of a burst in for my eyes. But it really is nice to see athletes who... This sport's a tough sport, and when an athlete has to go through things, and she's a bit emotional, rightly so, rightly so. I mean, the marathon does that to you, but especially when you've had to go through the ringer to pick yourself up again, and the heights she's been to. And I hope one day we see her in a British vest at the championship again. But well done, Becky Briggs, really well deserved, and we'll enjoy watching your story unfold in the future.
Emile Caresse still working hard down the embankment. I haven't seen him overtake anyone. He was firmly in the top 10 though, and he has still got, that's just bikes to aim at there. But Emile Caresse is around about 2.5 minutes behind Monyeyo, who does have a lead in the overall race that blew the group apart with an injection in pace with Kenenisa Bekele, and only Monyeyo could match it. Monyeyo in the lead at the moment, but Emile Caresse, around about 5 minutes left to go here on the roads, and he will be trying to get every second he can.
No, sorry, Hannah. Yeah, we're moving to Mohamed.
come to Emil, because that's important to see, because he still can pick up a lot of athletes in the closing stage. Mohamed, do we have an up-to-date split on him? Are we still, last we saw about 5-10 minutes ago, he was still on for 2:07 pace when we last saw, so we'll get a quick update for you. But he's looking good, he's looking strong. He's 35 seconds. Whoa, he's actually catching Emil here. I mean, don't get me wrong, Emil's looking good. He doesn't look like he's slowing down too much. And Mohamed, if this is correct, he is picking up the pace to squeeze inside 2:07. On the tracking app, it has 2:06.58. If this is right, this is an incredible run for Mohamed. He has been preparing hard, he's been working hard, he's been in the Ethiopia training. He's only got 4 minutes of running left. Past the London Eye in the background, up for me the last tricky bit up this little rise. I keep mentioning it, but it is a little nuisance, especially at the end of a marathon. And he comes round. I don't think there's going to be danger in catching Emil, partly because Emil looked good, partly, but this is an incredible run, and we could end up seeing Mohamed joining Phil, and we'd assume Emil on the Olympic team. Last I checked, Mark Scott was still inside the Olympic standard, but I haven't got confirmation. He could be a minute behind Mohamed and still be inside the Olympic standard as we move to the leader, Monyeyo.
Alexander Monyeyo has piled the pressure on Kenenisa Bekele in this last 5,000 metres, and it has, I think, secured his win. He is looking behind. He has started to rig ever so slightly. At one point, around about 3 or 4 minutes ago, they were on a different screen here that we could see, and I thought, is Monyeyo just starting to slow down ever so slightly? But he would have passed through 385 yards to go and be very relieved to look over his shoulder and see Kenenisa Bekele hadn't turned the corner behind him. It is going to be a win for the Kenyan. He's just getting direction there from a steward to make sure he gets absolutely to the right place. And Monyeyo, he's tired, he's laboured, the knee lift is low, but on his debut in the London Marathon, Alexander Monyeyo is going to take his very first win on the streets of London. He was third in Valencia back in 2022. He then won in Prague, one of the smaller marathons, and then it was a wonderful second in Valencia in December, 2:03.11. That's his lifetime best. He's going to be just outside of that. Is he going to get under 2:4? What a win for Alexander Monyeyo. He joins the likes of Kelvin Kipton, Amos Kiprutu, Cisse Lema and Shura Tola as winners of the London Marathon, and the wonderful Eliud Kipchoge, of course. Kenenisa Bekele, what a run. That is great. A second place for Bekele is just wonderful as he bids to make his 4th Olympic team for Ethiopia, and you can't really argue against that. There are a lot of big names here in this men's field, and Bekele has put himself in 2nd place.
And as we see Monyeyo cross the line, he's looking good, fingers in the air. He is happy with his victory, and so he should be. He's won his first London Marathon, and he's put himself in the history books. Absolutely incredible run, and he's beaten a very good field. He's put some people to bed. You can see Bekele in the background. He's had a fantastic tussle between Kenenisa, and he's come out on top, and he cuts the tape, and he gives himself, he says thank you to whoever he's thanking, and he's now the London Marathon champion of 2024.
Fantastic running from Monyeyo and from Bekele. They really, really blew apart that pack, splintered them across the track in the last 10 kilometres or so, and these two built up such a massive lead. We're waiting for the 3rd place finisher here at the London Marathon. Bekele's got time to limber up, trying to stretch himself out, and this man, the British athlete Emil Carresse, has fought his way through 26 miles here in his 2nd marathon ever, and he is up into 3rd place. This is one of the best performances we've seen from a British athlete at the London Marathon in years. The last podium finish was back in 1993 for Eamon Martin, but that no longer is our last British podium athlete. It is going to be Emil Carresse. This has been a masterpiece of running from the man from Leeds. He's been a good age group athlete. He played football as a youngster. He joined Leeds City AC and he was coached by Phil Townsend for many years. At 18, he moved to St Mary's University. He was coached by Alan Story for many years. A couple of years ago, he moved to the legendary Renata Canavo and he has barely looked back. A 2:08.07 debut last year. But this year, Emile Caresse is on to the podium. And if you looked in the background, you would have seen Mohamed Mohamed is coming in for 4th place, but Caresse, this is announcing him onto the world stage, good and proper, underneath 2:7. He betters the mark as Steve Jones. He goes 2nd overall ever in the British Marathon records, in marathon standings. What a run from Emile Caresse. Mohamed Mohamed just behind. Could he go faster than the Welshman? Steve Jones was 2:07.13, and Mohamed Mohamed just outside 2:07 obliterates the marathon Olympic qualification standings. Time he puts himself 3rd all time on the British standings. Emile Caresse, Mohamed Mohamed. We wait for an athlete, a British athlete, to make a podium, and we nearly get 2 in 1 year. Fantastic running from those two. This is Hassan Chadi of France. I think he's going to better his personal best as well. The French team is going to be very, very tough to make for Paris. They've had athletes down in the 2:03s, 2:04s, so despite that wonderful 5th place from Chadi, I'm not sure that'll be enough to get him on their home Olympic team, but Caresse and Mohamed.
What have we just seen? My voice, I didn't even have to call it in, my voice. Look at that legend. What has he just done? He has just finished 3rd in London Marathon, 1st British man, and there's Mohamed Mohamed 4th. What have we just seen, Hannah? That was incredible runs. They were patient. They ran smart races. They picked them off as they came through. We said at the start, if these athletes can't handle this pace, there's going to be some athletes dying a death and they can pick them off. And look, they give each other a high five. Now that Emile, I wouldn't be surprised if Emile's a little bit surprised and he's wearing his basic watch, as Hannah points to me. And they've, for me, I'd put Mohamed Mohamed in that picture with them because that was an incredible run. First
Give him a towel.
Yeah, exactly. I hope he does get a towel. But honestly, we can't underestimate how big that was, because sometimes we get obsessed with times. But what we've just witnessed was a fantastic race. Monyeo's come out on top in the middle. He was the strongest runner. He wasn't necessarily the fastest in the sense of the word, but he ran away. He held strong. Bekele just outperformed what I expected. Fantastic run. And Emile Caresse, 3rd. Look at him, 3rd. And I'm a little bit emotional for the lad because he's such a nice guy. That's the thing about it. Mohamed Mohamed and Emile, they're stunning individuals. He's working hard. And I tell you what, I can't wait to see him in Paris because that was I'm just so happy for the lads.
Tesfaye was running with Emile Caresse for much of the race and just dropped off around about after halfway, but still a well-judged race for him to, I think, perhaps come through for 6th place. We must have had some other finishers. There was a huge group of athletes running with Bekele and Manyeo for so long, and we keep mentioning the Olympic Games. Of course, it is so exciting, Olympic year, and you know, around about 100 days to go or so, and the athletes have been fighting for their chance to get onto that Olympic team. And at Ethiopia and Kenya, it is so competitive. So I wonder, there would have been a lot of men heartbroken, if we're honest, in the last 10 miles or so, as they realised their Olympic dreams were potentially over. Hendrik Pfeiffer, the German athlete, picking off another few athletes. He'll be well into the top 10.
He's I think that's his 5th or 6th marathon in the space of 10 months, and he will be in Paris running for Germany. But that obviously hurt. But listen, he is a tough competitor, that guy. He's recently run 2:07, and we'll see him hitting the roads in Paris. Another lovely lad as well. But look at the two British lads with their towels, importantly, and the wind. I'm looking at the way the wind's blowing, and maybe it was a bit tougher than we can feel in the studio out there. And so again, another reason to ignore the times too much. But as we see, another finish. I'm not sure if this is what position-wise, but all eyes on Emile. And look at that. Look at that 3rd place smile. Just absolutely fantastic with his basic watch. And I cannot wait to see these guys in Paris. And I tell you, I'm sure the selectors will be very happy that no drama today. They haven't got to worry too much. And as we see, Mark Scott, I mean,
let's not forget, this is his debut. He's looking a bit laboured, but hang on, this is his debut. It's not always easy to get it right. He's a world-class athlete. He's come here with a purpose to run the Olympic standard. 2:11.17 is still a very good debut, especially considering the fact that he went out for a 2:08 low, and that's tough to go. He's a bit wobbly there, but again, that's nature of the fact he's gone out with a purpose to run an Olympic standard, and I'm sure he would have run a little bit quicker on the day with a slightly different pace for his current fitness, but that's not the point. He's come here for the purpose, and he will, I'm sure, with this calibre of the calibre of athlete, he would come back, but he's done well. I'm sure the selectors would be happy that he's not caused another headache for them, but yeah, well done, Mark Scott. We'll see you back in the event soon.
You know, the athletes like Mark Scott, I think, was hoping to debut back in Valencia, and that would be more of a plan of debut in Valencia and have this as a backup, as a second attempt to get that Olympic qualifying mark. And you look at the other side of the coin, you got Phil Sessamon just missing the time in Valencia, having a second shot. Mohammed again, this was his second shot at that Olympic qualifying time, and they both achieved it. And I think Mark Scott, that is a fantastic debut. I really hope that Scott has got enough time now to recover and attempt a spot in the 5K or the 10K for the Olympic team, because he is one of our best endurance runners, and he's very good on the track, and it's going to be a tough turnaround. He really emptied the tank there for that 2:11.
That's a face of contemplation, that, isn't it? That's the thing about marathon running, I find, is a lot of hopes and dreams on the start of a marathon, and as you see the contrasting feelings of Emil and Mohammed and Mark standing on the start line, hoping for an Olympic spot, hoping for a high finish. I don't think Emil could have quite envisioned what's happened today, nor Mohammed, and likewise with Mark. But listen, this is the highs and lows of athletics. They will dust themselves up, they'll come again, and as you say, the details of race choice and all that is, you seem a little bit more clued up than I am, but again, so well done. But look at Magnier there, smiling with that nice picture of the 2024 London Marathon right next to his face. But that, he will forever be in the history books of a London Marathon winner. And they're up there collecting themselves, having a bit of a chat. They're good, you know, all the distance runners are good friends, and you can see Spencer Barn in the background, the race director that put these fields together. Him and the team very much look after the British athletes, and as you saw today with the pacemakers and the way they look after them to try and help them get the best out of themselves. And I'm so grateful that we got to watch some fantastic British races. And again, I keep going on about it, but they do, and there's Ian as well, they do look after them to try and help them get the best out of themselves. And we're going to come away today with two, you'd assume, got to wait to see, two more Olympic selected athletes off the back of that.
Still very, very busy out on the course here at London Marathon, and that's 10 years clear. I imagine that is referring to cancer diagnosis, and that is just wonderful. There's got to be a world record for 8 people in a fancy dress competition, or a fancy dress outfit that they're going for there, because you wouldn't be doing that unless you absolutely had to. They're almost impeding the other athletes around Cutty Sark there. Perhaps a bit of a windbreak if they got to a windy section of the course, but great running from all these athletes, aiming for around about 4.5 hours in the mass participation event. So, as the masses complete their day, we'll take a moment to look back on the elite races here at the 44th edition of the London Marathon. First over the line was the men's wheelchair race. Marcel Hug racking up yet another win. A bit more conservative of a race from the Swiss man after his fall on Monday in Boston, but a win nonetheless. Daniel Romanchuk looked in trouble around the halfway point, but he did manage to get himself into second place. And David Weir, the home athlete from Great Britain, a 21st podium finish in his 25th run at the London Marathon. In the women's race, Catherine de Brunner dominated from the start, and she won by 6 minutes and 6 seconds. That is quite some winning margin, possibly one of the biggest we've ever seen in the women's wheelchair race. Manuela Schär judged her effort well to make it 2 Swiss athletes in the top 2 spots. And Tatiana McFadden, the United States athlete that's been around for so long, had a fantastic race, got herself into 3rd place. A new women's only world record in the women's elite race. Peres Chepchirchir, the reigning Olympic champion, coming good in Olympic year 2:16.16. The world record holder took a safer, having to settle for second place, 2:16.23. Just 1 second ahead of Jocelyn Jepkosgei, the Kenyan, snatching the last place on the podium. And the final race of the day, the men's elite, went to Alexander Matiso Munyayo of Kenya, 2:04.01, just getting himself ahead of the wonderful Kenenisa Bekele. What a run for the Ethiopian, getting second place. But Emile Caresse breaks the drought of British podium finishes at the London Marathon. He picks up third place, second all time in the British rankings, 2:06.46. And Mohamed, third all time for Great Britain, 2:07.05. Well, what a fantastic day here in the streets of London. It has been brilliant racing, great to see all those close contests, apart from Catherine de Bruyne, who just dominated in the women's wheelchair. Chris, you've got one highlight from today?
Emile. Well, Emile and Mohamed, the British interest in the, apologies, that's a little bit biased, but just absolutely incredible. I think we got treated to 4 fantastic races for well-earned, well-deserved winners, and we've had a little bit of everything, so I'm so happy. And just so you know, the main event of my mum is on for 2 hours 15, so that's still to come, still stuff worth watching on.
Absolutely wonderful stuff. Thank you so much for joining us here for the London Marathon, the 2024 edition. We hope you enjoy the rest of your Sunday, and we'll see you next year.